Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have continuing the Cold Relic stories with the Liminal Warehouse. So, we're back again. The Liminal Warehouse, it's posted by Digigekko on creepypasta.wiki, and it's by Tyler, on Cold Relic site. Technically it's Boris, because most of the story is written by that character.
Yeah.
But Tyler is the person that's actually writing these stories? Question mark?
He's posting them and putting everything together, yeah.
Gotta love the anonymity of the internet and trying to figure out who wrote what.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best. But anyway, yeah, so we're doing the next installment of the Cold Relic stories, the Liminal Warehouse. So if you'd like to go check it out, you can check it out at the creepypasta.wiki page or on the Cold Relic's official website. And I will dive into my rundown. So it's been a few years since the Signal Intercept story, and a reluctant Boris has been badgered by a persistent Tyler to recount the experience Boris had when he and Jack, who you'll remember was from the Kittyland stories, went to Ukraine to look for that site Tyler brought up at the end of the previous entry. Boris and Jack get a local guide at a small village in rural Ukraine where a mysteriously large warehouse-like facility stands hidden, both physically and digitally, from the world in the woods. They sneak in at night, since there are security cameras still monitoring the place. Fortunately, their guide, called Laszlo, has snuck in before to scavenge materials to sell. They get inside and find a massive warehouse area, and deeper within, inside another massive enclosure. It's just a Matryoshka doll. It's just like, yo, dog, I heard you like warehouses, so I put a warehouse in your warehouse. Yeah, or it's not so much a warehouse. It's also described as one of those aircraft hangars. So it's kind of got apparently I think it's supposed to be a domed roof, or not a domed roof, but a curved roof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, inside this secondary enclosed space, which is a pretty massive expanse, is a replica of an American town, Main Street, from the 80s. They use flashlights, even though the place supposedly has power, because there's something bad about the lights, according to Laszlo. Laszlo appears to be holding down some secrets that he doesn't want to say to the gang, but they're willing to follow him anyway. While exploring, the lights come on, including some strangely designed streetlights that create bubbles of hard-edged purple-pink light that encompass large parts of the street and the fake buildings. Being told not to approach the lights by a very suspicious and nervous Laszlo, and finding that Boris's dosimeter that he brought is clicking near when they are near the bubbles, they decide to attempt to leave by jumping over the rooftops of the fake buildings. It is here that they find the idiots that turned on the lights, some drunk German tourists urban exploring in the place at the same night that they happen to be exploring this place. They walk through these Germans walk through the lights, unaware of the dangers, and that danger becomes very apparent when a strange mechanical tiger bot comes pouncing through the strange lights, and only through the lights. It only exists when it is in those bubbles of light. And after some harrowing encounters with this super intelligent machine, the gang gets trapped for a bit. The German guys died. They were there to show us that what the monster could do. After so they're trapped, like the gang's trapped in one of the buildings. And after sharing some backstory with one another, finding out that Laszlo's father and brother were killed in this facility by the thing, shortly after the facility shut down, they proceed to attempt to flee. It almost works until Laszlo gets grabbed by the Tigerbot's jaws and he loses his arm. While Jack tries to keep Laszlo from bleeding out, Boris goes on to turn off the power and at the control room. When he leaves the town enclosure, he finds the exterior warehouse, again that warehouse that was encasing the other warehouse. Its lights are all on, and they seem to be emitting the same weird lighting effect that the streetlights were causing. Basically leaving Boris out in the open for this Tigerbot to come out at him. To which it does. It phases through the wall and starts chasing him. Boris, injured at this point, desperately tries to outrun the bot. Finds a fire axe and the fuse box of the lighting situation, or the electronics of this warehouse, and destroys the fuses, and the power cuts out just as the Tigerbot pounces on him and vanishes out of existence. Getting into the control room and turning off the interior lights of the fake town, he finds a hidden monitoring room, but there's no clues as to like what the place was doing and any kind of like research papers or anything like that. It seems to be all been cleared out. So he proceeds to destroy the light controls for good so that nobody could ever turn them back on, and escapes with Jack and Laszlo from the building. They get Laszlo help, and a day or so later, Laszlo reveals he has some items of interest for the Cold Relics archive, including an actual laser tag manual from the first Cold Relic story. So, kind of revealing that story's item of interest was actually a real thing. It wasn't just some story on the internet, according to the characters in this story, which is fictional. Anyway, Jack and Boris return home, though Boris did have a chemist in Kiev look at the particles and dust and soil samples that were left on his shoes while he was running through the warehouse, because the lights seem to reveal irradiated dust on the ground, but only in the light. And it is revealed that the dust is from a nuclear exchange of both Soviet and American bombs, which never happened. We also get a last bit of exchange from Tyler and Boris about the fact that our hero woke up from a coma 2 years ago, and that Tyler is going to finish gathering that tale together for next time. So, fin for now. But yeah, that's the rundown. So, suppose we'll move on to Everyone Tolerates the Grammar Inquisitions. At this point, I've got a fair amount, so I'll just dive into this one. So this is from so again there's a couple of email exchanges, and then like the bulk of the story is just the one email exchange. Like he attached the file to it. So I'm gonna use I'm using the dates and stuff like that they're on the email entries for my Grammar Inquisitions and for my actual thoughts. Did anybody else do that? God damn it. Okay, anyway, so from date 12/16/20, from Boris to Tyler, subject Ukraine incident. And what is it that thing? Jack asked me once I had taken out a rather unique device. So I think you need to remove the "it" in the dialogue. Whoops. So it's dialogue. So it could be so it's the way the character talks. But I still think that "it" should be removed because it's clearly trying to say like, and what is that thing?
Well, or you could put in a comma, and what is it? That thing.
Oh yeah, that would work too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's just missing a comma then. So either remove the it or add a comma at the end of the it. But again, it's dialogue, so I was like, but moving on. This effect became more intense the closer we got to the lights. Or did I fucking... Never mind. Okay, so the next quote here is, this effect became more intense the closer we go to the lights. I feel like go should maybe be got to the lights.
Past tense, so yeah.
Yeah, because of the past tense situation here.
But I understand why you're doubting yourself, because you can, in the present tense, go to the lights. The closer we go to the lights, the brighter they are, kind of deal.
Yeah.
But it's past, so yeah.
Okay. Then moving on to the next one. Even so, I gave him a nod, and we began taking turns climbing up on the roof of the pool hall, which involved getting on top of the dumpster, reaching to one of the second floor windowsills, pulling ourselves up, then standing on that sill and doing the same thing to get onto the roof, all without falling off backwards and risking a broken bone. All one sentence. There's commas, but it was all one sentence. It was a run-on.
Pretty much the entire paragraph.
Yeah. In fact, you'll notice like I was kind of hesitating at the beginning there is because I was like, what's the problem here? Oh, it's that.
Yeah. And I say it's basically the whole paragraph. Well, not completely. Because the words, well, not completely at the start are not part of that runoff.
No.
Like those.
Yeah. Also, my second thing I wanted to address from this little paragraph or half paragraph was windowsill should be two separate words. Like it was windowsills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As far as I know, they're two separate words. And then here's another slightly run-on.
Would this be a sentence graph or a parent sentence? Paratens?
A paratens? A paratens or a sengraph? A centigraph, yeah.
No, it's one or the other.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But here's the next one. It was clumsy. Also, I apologize for not doing Boris's accent in this. Yeah, I feel like I should maybe just I don't recall which, like right off the hop, which dialogue or which captions I have that are Boris's or Jack. And Jack is clearly not a Ukrainian or have like a Russian accent kind of thing. So I'm going with so I kind of had to like stop myself from doing the accent for everybody.
I hope you at least read it entirely in your head in Russian.
Oh, of course.
Okay, good.
Well, with the Russian accent, I don't know how to speak Russian.
Lies.
Yeah, but yeah, I like both. Basically, like whatever Jack was speaking, I was like, I cut the accent. Whenever it was Boris like narrating or talking, and whenever Laszlo was talking, it was with a Ukrainian accent or with a Russian accent.
Yep.
So anyway, it was clumsy compared to Laszlo's stab at it, but if Jack could pull it off without losing his balance, falling into the light below and cracking his skull, then I knew I had a chance. So yeah, to me this was slightly run on. And like for me, the easy fix here is you really don't need that unnecessary additional death detail. Like I just feel like maybe you could remove like and cracking his skull open. like I don't know. It just feels like that was just an unnecessary addition to be added to the sentence.
Wait, what's the part that you think is too much?
So it's like it was clumsy compared to Laszlo's stab at it, comma, but if Jack could pull it off without losing his balance, comma, falling into the light below, comma, and cracking his skull, comma, then I knew I had a chance. And I feel like maybe even for some reason I feel like the and cracking his skull open or cracking his skull bit was just like a step too far for me. It was like it's sort of what pulled this into a slight run-on sentence. And like,
I get what
just
you're
feel like it's
saying in regards
yeah,
to
I just
making
feel like
comment
it's
out too much, but like that is the process of events that would happen.
yeah, but
Lose his
it doesn't.
balance, fall, and hit his head.
Yeah, but at the same time, like you don't really need that detail specifically,
And he'd bleed out on the floor, and then he would cease to
or
exist.
just don't,
And then
just
we'd
like
have to
falling
dig up
into
his
the light
body,
below.
drag his body out, and take his body home back to his
Okay,
parents.
sure.
And then
All right.
we'd have to get him ready for the funeral and everything, and then we'd have to put him down into the ground. And yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a point where it's too much.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was a very condescending way of saying I'm right. Thanks.
Now,
I mean, you're not right. I still like it the way it is, but I'm
Now-
just saying.
the question is, if you remove the comma at below, does that make it better?
Falling, maybe it does. Fuck. Falling into light below and cracking his skull. That might honestly make it better to me. Like, because I never use comma when it's the last like detail I'm adding to something. I usually go with the and, not a comma.
Yeah.
And.
Mhm.
So.
Or is it just you have like a certain limit of commas you can handle in a sentence? Like 2 is enough.
Maybe, yeah. I know. Again, like maybe I was coming off the last run on, which was like, even so, comma. I gave him a nod, comma, and we and went to the pool hall, comma, which involved going up in the dumpster, comma, reaching to one of the floor's windowsills, comma, pulling ourselves up, comma. Like it was like kind of like how you were condescendingly saying I was right earlier, where it's like you're like it's like just keep adding on little details every comma.
Yeah. Instead of just ending the sentence and making a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that nitpick because it's kind of nitpicky, but yeah, the comma I wouldn't leave in there, or get rid of the unnecessary detail. Anyway, moving on. The German. Wow, I almost want to say the Germans.
I mean, you still can.
Okay, the Germans. No, I'm not doing it. The Germans were only a few streetlights away from the pair near us, and I figured we were about to end up in their coming YouTube video under a caption calling us the drunk explorers that they ran into on the way. I feel like it should be like their upcoming YouTube video, not their coming YouTube video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my next one here, a dark shape which moved so quickly that was gone by the time I had looked over. So I think that should be an it. So it's like, which moved so quickly that it was gone by the time I looked over.
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe get rid of that had, like, I had looked over. Like, by the time I looked over.
It both work.
Just because it's like, again, just like it might be nitpick, but it just seems like an extra word that you don't need in that sentence.
Yep.
It's the way Boris writes.
Yeah. Sweet, sweet Boris.
Mm-hmm.
On to my next one here. The mass of lethal metal turned its head toward the backpackers for a moment, but then decided to pursue the one straight ahead, running straight through the lights and in a panic to get away. Oh, okay. So my issue here was that last bit, like running straight through the lights and in a panic to get away. I thought that was the tiger bot, not the German that was running straight ahead.
Wow.
I feel like for this one I might remove the and at the end and change the last A to his panic. So it's like, but then decided to pursue the one straight ahead, running straight through the lights in his panic to get away. That way it sort of helps contextualize who is running straight through the lights like that. Like, It was just one of those things that I kind of, like, I was like, I had to double take. I was like, wait, the tiger's running in a panic? What?
Yeah, I didn't get that hiccup. However, looking at the sentence and the way it's structured, I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And then my next one here, he managed to pass on the message to the person we were trying to save with just another 2 basic German words. And it was starting to look like we'd actually have a chance to pull him up once he took off his pack. Held it above his head and began jumping, all while keeping the trash can from falling over. An impressive feat considering that he had come in here inebriated. So yeah, another run-on sentence. Like, goddamn. I feel like that might be the story's biggest grammar offender, is just run-on sentences. But secondly, here, actually, the thing that caught me before even the grammar position, or the run-on, shouldn't it be I managed to pass on the message with just a few German words? As in Boris, since it was established earlier that he was the one that spoke some German. Like, that's kind of what I thought it was that Boris was the one that knew German.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm going to actually just quickly double check that, because I was pretty sure it was him that said earlier that it was like that he spoke a little bit of German.
Since Jack wasn't getting anywhere, I got to my feet, went to his side, and yelled down using what little German I knew.
Okay, so yeah, it was Boris that knew German, not Jack.
Yes.
So
yeah, the fact that it says he managed to pass on the message to the person we were trying to save with just 2 basic German words.
Yeah, so it should be I managed to pass on a message, because I think even like right before this, it was Jack said something, and then Boris is passing that message along in German. So, but I'll move on to the next thing here. Of course, we were like rabbits to a wolf against such a machine, and Jack was easily dragged into the light right with Boris. Don't you mean Laszlo? or right, or maybe even like me, since like Boris shouldn't, or maybe Boris shouldn't be talking in the third person. Like, I read this part and I double taked again a couple times, because it was like I was trying to figure out what it was trying to say. Like, Jack was easily dragged into the light because he's holding Laszlo like with his good arm to try and stop the machine creature from like taking Laszlo out of the light and stuff. And then it says like Jack was easily dragged into the light right with Boris. So like,
well, Boris is writing this.
Like, I get it. Like, so either like I think it should be Laszlo, because like he right with Laszlo as he's like being pulled in with the creature, or maybe Boris is like next to Jack trying to help pull Laszlo out of the light, or like kind of in this tug of war.
Yeah,
but
way,
I don't think it should say right with Boris.
No, he would not be referring to himself in that manner.
Yeah, especially since he hasn't done that throughout this entire story.
And considering the next sentence says, I grabbed onto Jack.
Yes.
So it sounds like he hasn't even helped at that point yet.
Yeah, so it should be Laszlo.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my next one here. I had become just as obsessed with a shadow world and its history as Jack, Kate, and their friend were. And to this, I was just like, what? No mention of Tyler? I mean, I suppose Tyler's the one that's this is being like recorded to, or like being like kind of written for the most part. But so maybe even change it at the end there. It's like Jack, Kate, and our friend, or I had become just as obsessed with a shadow world and its history as Jack, Kate, our friend, and you were. Sort of like, it just seemed weird like that. Like he's saying that like our hero was like just strictly Jack and Kate's friend, even though, you know, technically our hero went and hung out with Boris.
It's because for some dumb reason they can't say his stupid name. He who shall not be named is
yes
who he is. Blech.
Yes. Yeah, our hero more like our king in yellow.
Right?
Anyway, that's actually all I have for Grammar Inquisition. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
You did a fairly good job there.
Yay.
And then my next one could be considered a nitpick. But it's just about consistency.
Fair enough. Do it.
Oh. Laz ran and leapt across and over the alley, passing through the toppled light's glow for a few dangerous feet. Up until that point, Laszlo is always Laszlo. And in this sentence, he's Laz.
Yeah, this is the beginning of like Boris like kind of interchanging this fake name for this Ukrainian
Yeah.
with a like a nickname, basically like shortening of the name.
Yeah, my problem is they only use Laz twice.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So just keep it as Laszlo.
Yep. Yeah, I'm honestly kind of with you on this one because, like, first off, it's not his real name. So like keep the regular name, like keep the formal like naming convention. And secondly, like it just seemed like, yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of times in this where I think like maybe Boris is writing like he's just writing this down like as much as to try and get as much as he can down on paper. So like maybe he's skipping some things, but Tyler's come back and like edited through this. So like, what the heck is Tyler's dropping the ball or dropping the ball, not bomb. That happens in another universe.
Indeed.
But yeah, he's dropping the ball on like the editing of this. So
Wow, there are 97 instances of the word Laz in this story.
well, no, that could be like also because that also includes Laszlo.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying his name is said a lot, which makes sense, but
yeah,
I didn't realize it'd be close to triple digits there.
I mean, to be fair, like this story is like it chalks up to almost 40 pages long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you, Mikey, on this one. Maybe keep it Laszlo, not Laz.
All right. And then I have a conjunction junction.
All right.
I found a third
insert
Laz.
conjunction.
Sorry.
Add a comma.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm clicking through all 97. I'm almost done.
I found a fourth one.
Yeah, right in the middle as he's saying shit. No.
Yeah. Okay. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
Or even just me. It took us 2 years to plan the trip. And not only did I not go, I also didn't get anything from you to help me continue my research, regardless if the rest of you don't care anymore. It's his money, I guess. It was obvious which of the Cold Relic stories interested Jack the most. But honestly, I had the same thought many times. It wasn't like it had anything to do with our investigation. It's actually not very fitting, but I'm not going to dwell on it. It made me almost long for that cold, dark blizzard back in Buffalo, spending long nights alone in my old garage surrounded by tech. But, somewhat to my surprise, Laszlo deflected or played down each question. But I picked up more of a he's hiding something tone. It was bigger than an aircraft hangar, and I think me and Jack were both reminded of the same place upon our arrival. It would be replacing and covering the original sarcophagus that locked away the destroyed Chernobyl reactor. It didn't exactly tower over the surrounding trees, and the poor condition of its exterior siding suggested it was over 30 years old, roughly. Its arcing roof was painted in greens to make it look like the tops of trees and disguise it, but that couldn't account for it not appearing as an anomaly on satellite photos. But Laszlo grew up here, where the warehouse had always just been part of the local lore. So, to be safe, he had never turned them on, instead relying on a flashlight for his ventures inside. But since the area still had running security cameras and was presumably monitored, it was safer to sneak in under cover of night. but he insisted we go through with it. But Laszlo came through, flipping us past any security cameras and remaining fencing. It was pitch black inside, other than our beams of light, and the first thing that they hit and illuminated was asphalt. It wasn't as if this type of place didn't exist elsewhere on Earth, but here in rural Ukraine, within an enormous enclosure, was a replica of a small American town's main street. It looked like a movie set, slightly too clean with too few imperfections. It even had a movie theater that looked straight out of Back to the Future's Hill Valley, which we had come out near. The bulkhead door entrance was in a small alleyway between the fake cinema and the police station. But we weren't so stupefied that we couldn't at least move our lights about and take in this faux America giant set piece. It was at this point that I snapped out of my stupor and remembered that I had a dosimeter on me. But I suppose the builders were going for variety here. But were the two places connected in any way? It was all just dead air. But nothing could ever be simple. It was similar to the dull poof noise emitted by a camera flash or powerful stadium lights being turned on. But the street lamps, they were something else entirely. It wasn't the worst idea, but Jack wasn't asking the obvious question. But I was willing to give him a shot at guiding us out of here before trying to wrestle anything else out of him concerning this place's history. So, great. But if getting out of here safely would really take so much effort, I at least wanted to get a closer look at the strange light to maybe get some idea just how it was being produced or why it wasn't safe. It was a peculiar immediate response, but he did actually have a point. It was slow and steady, so I wasn't too concerned about my exposure just yet. But it was the first time it had picked up anything. It had been difficult to see in the monochrome light, but there was a thin layer of dust or dirt on top of the street and sidewalk, and for some reason its coverage only extended as far as the glow did. It looked like us two Americans had satisfied enough of our curiosity for the moment, so we backed off and started on our escape route. But it wasn't that far. It was clumsy compared to Laszlo's stab at it, but if Jack could pull it off without losing his balance, falling into the light below, and cracking his skull, then I knew I had a chance. It was like they were all bisected by the tall metal barrier which surrounded the town. And as I looked behind me at the containment walls, I noticed a dark shape in the back corner of the tavern roof. It was a lab coat. It didn't occur to me until I had a moment to think, but I realized that the dosimeter had let out a few clicks when I was holding up the lab coat. It must have also gotten a light dusting of the radioactivity. But fine, we'd do it Laszlo's way and focus on getting out first. And I still felt like we were never really... Ugh. And I still felt like we had never really been alone in here. It didn't come to any surprise that they didn't want to listen to me either. It looked like they had gotten bored of our warnings and were ready to completely ignore us. But I couldn't even be sure that I had really seen it at first and didn't say anything. But wait. If it was sprinting right down the street, then why couldn't I see it? It must have been running at 50 miles an hour, at least. And as it got closer to us, I could feel its rhythmic, heavy impacts on the asphalt getting heavier. It was now no wonder that Laszlo was so afraid of what lurked in here. If it turned out he had actually seen it before, it would be impossible to outrun on foot. But the beast actually came to a sudden stop just a few feet from the two explorers. It was in the light, and they were in the nearby darkness. It wasn't that it was just invisible without it. It was more like it was somewhere else entirely. It was the light itself that gave it form and made it real. It stared back at them almost without a sound. Only some sort of metal creaking emanated from its body. It was not at all organic, and was designed to emulate an actual great predator in only the most basic of ways. It was too advanced, too many moving parts. It was like it didn't even belong in this world. It crouched down, some hydraulic shifted, and after a sound similar to an air brake went off, it leapt out of the glowing sphere and vanished into the darkness. Its target had no chance. But it didn't show up. But our hands were a good 3 or 4 feet apart. It turned its gaze towards us, took a few seconds to think about its next move, and proceeded to ram its entire body into the lamppost. It was quickly obvious what it was trying to do, and upon realizing it himself, the tourist we were trying hard to rescue began to panic even more. It crashed into the side of the next building and was so heavy that it took out much of its wall, which was little more than plywood. It caused a tingling sensation on my skin and was making my dosimeter go off, but otherwise didn't feel too strained. Its calculations seemed dead on, and it looked like it would slam right into me, then drag me off into the other place by teeth or claw. But Jack was there for me at the edge of the broken roof of the bookstore. It hurt worse than I expected, because it turned out that I had been impaled by a long, ugly nail sticking out from a wooden beam. It turned and left us alone after a few more seconds, crushing foam and wood underfoot as it turned into the alley and disappeared. But I insisted until he eventually got down on his knees and quietly crawled against the part of the wall that was still intact. But it was bad news for us. But it beat running down the street and through half a dozen glowing death traps. It didn't feel quite safe out there, even though the lights ahead and behind us were a good distance away. And though I didn't like thinking about it, I knew we couldn't go in one at a time and give that thing a means to pick us off. It was such a small space to cross. It was like I had crossed the vacuum of space for a brief moment in time. But then the machine burst out from the shadow, its jaws already open. It quickly became obvious why he was wailing and in so much pain. It was worse than I expected, and if we couldn't stop the bleeding, I knew he wouldn't survive. It was just standing there, in the middle of the glowing sphere, watching me as I briefly flew in the air, its eyes and head tracking my movement. It looked like I would make it. But I got a little ahead of myself, or overly confident. It didn't feel like I had broken anything. It cost me, and Laszlo, precious minutes. But I stood up as soon as I could, and I put some weight on my right leg. It hurt, but it was bearable. It had no way of getting to me any more. It didn't react to that either. It seemed brighter than I remembered, but of course my eyes had adjusted to the darkness of the town. It was a long hallway, ominously empty, filled with light and the sound of electrical humming. It turned and stared me down. It bore down on the floor into a pouncing position and produced sounds like it was revving up servos and charging up pistons. It was closing in. It couldn't squeeze through below or above it, so it began to slice into it instead. Knocked the two destroyed halves to the side, thrashing its way through what remained, and began to pick up its speed again. It was the fuse box I would be running by that gave me a chance. It shot out sparks, and for a brief moment the lights flickered, and the creature's existence right along with them. It took to the air, its jaws open, ready to take my head clean off. And then I opened my eyes to the darkness of the corridor, right as the dim emergency lights flipped on. It was all I had to calm my nerves, bad as the things were for me. It was smaller than I expected, and its only window really was the town hall's facade's second floor middle window. It gave me a good view of the model Main Street all the way back to the cinema's marquee at the other end. It was my dumb-ass motivations that got them here in the first place. It had its own power, but only had a few dim wall-mounted lights that didn't give the place much illumination. It would easily tempt anyone into turning on the lights that would end up killing them. Or maybe Laszlo just kept an eye on it. But I didn't have so much as a gas can on me. It was hard to let go and give up, knowing all that had happened, and the lives destroyed or lost to some sinister echo reaching out from the past. It wasn't until me and Jack were seated together in the otherwise empty waiting room at 7 in the morning, eating breakfast hash, did we finally have a time to really catch our breath and think about all that had just happened. It turned out he had actually lied to us about something else earlier. He really did have some knowledge about certain things and found a few relics on his scavenging run. But we understood his own need for secrecy. And finally, the real find. Written in Cyrillic, a technical manual for a full laser tag toy set, complete with cross sections of a gun and vest. Because, well, there it was. It occurred to me that I needed to have them professionally looked at, thinking that there was a chance that the source of the irradiated material stuck on their bottoms could be tracked back to a source, even if it couldn't be explained why said material was able to leave the exotic lights of the warehouse. And anyway, this was probably one of the few countries in the world where having someone find radioactivity on your person wouldn't instantly raise suspicion that you're illegally handling fissile material, given that people go on tour in Pripyat all the time. And then, at long last, early in the morning, I arrived at my home in Buffalo with a few treasures to add to my lockbox. And no, I still don't know who built that machine or where it came from. But I guess I am a little curious about that. Because of the lights, it's kind of a concept right now on the internet. Mostly pictures of places that feel too empty and a little ominous or threatening. So I figured the Soviets must have run some tests in the area way back. Finn.
Thank you again for the secondary rundown
Thank you for
of the
reading
story.
the story.
Yeah, no, legit. Like next time, like you think, Mikey, do you think there's ever going to be a chance where, like, if there's a story that like most of the story is its, ands, or buts at the beginning of stories, are you just gonna like give it a pass? Just like I'm just like, or a blanket statement is just like this has a ton of like conjunction junction. In fact, the entire story is conjunction junction. So.
We'll just sit down and do our first actual reading of an entire creepypasta.
Oh, good lord.
Also, I noticed a front because there at the end of there. Is that a first?
Yeah.
I don't recall front because
No.
becoming a thing.
We've had different front becauses.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Also, I loved the when the fuse box was coming at him through the like trying to squeeze through the hallway and like the collapsed shelf.
Really changes the perspective of everything.
Yeah, it changes what the creature looks like.
Mm-hmm. A little bit.
It's just a giant fuse box.
And to those unaware, Mikey does these strings of sentences to highlight all the sentences that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ands, buts, and becauses. Because there's always easier word or better words to start sentences with.
And we also do this to see if we can find like that comedy gem of out of context situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it came at us at full force.
Yes.
It was a squirrel.
Yes.
I don't think anything's been able to top that first grammar or that first conjunction junction.
There's been a couple of good ones. It's just I
There
haven't
have
been
been.
recording them, and they haven't been like burned in my memory like the squirrel one.
Like the Super Saiyan squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, yeah. So that's all you got there, Mikey?
Yep.
All right. Gamer.
Okay. So this first one is in regards to the formatting, because really early on, probably the first line actually. I'm not gonna bother scrolling up; that'll take a while. The following are email excerpts from between Boris and Tyler. So as soon as I read that, I'm like, okay, I'm prepared for them to blend together due to lack of spacing, because that was my problem last time.
Mm-hmm.
Although A, it didn't do that this time, and B, I forgot to mention last time that the date, the sender, the recipient, and the subject are all bolded. So
Yeah.
they are broken up quite well. It's just there's only a problem when the actual meat of the email is only one line. Because then it's like bold, 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 unbold, bold, 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 bold. You know, like
I think the situation here is that, like you said, like bring up exactly what you just did. This story doesn't have any of the email correspondence that's just one word or like one line.
Yeah. They're chunky enough that you can clearly see it. Regardless, what we said last time was a line in between would be nice.
Yeah.
So like a page break or an extra line down.
Indeed.
Either way, I'll continue on. So this is in the actual meat and potatoes of the story, the actual attachment. Boris says, sure, it would be hot and we'd be in the middle of nowhere, but I would have been thinking the same thing no matter the season. Even if it was in the middle of winter, you'd still think it would be hot out? So maybe it should be changed to, sure, it would be hot and we'd be in the middle of nowhere, but I would be complaining about the weather no matter the season.
Yeah, that would work better. Yeah, like it's like too hot, too cold. Make up your mind.
Well, is Ukraine near the equator?
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a second. I don't. Good idea. I know it's. I know it's up in. It's up near. I know it's up near Russia.
Wow, good job.
Like that helps. Yeah, let me get a second.
It's like this. It's like vertically the same as like Germany.
It's actually lower. It's actually okay. Kiev is there. So we're because they south of them is Pripyat, which is the radioactive place. So that is. Just pulling that up.
Either way, it's only slightly more southern than the UK.
Yeah, I was gonna say like they are. Well, they are actually. They're actually really close to like if Pripyat is like south of this village, which is I think it said that earlier in the story, is that like Chernobyl and stuff of that was like they're basically on the border of Belarus and Ukraine, and that site area is basically about the same latitude as London or like around that area of the UK and stuff like that. So that is not near the equator.
No.
Okay.
That is, the equator is literally, according to Google Maps, the equator is right next to Ecuador, or is right on top of Ecuador, which is probably where it got its name.
Probably. So looking at Moscow on Google Maps, it's cool how it's just like, there's not many towns around it or anything, and it's just like this spider web of roads that all go to Moscow.
Yeah. All roads in Russia lead to Moscow.
Pretty much. That's cool. Anyways, unrelated.
Yes.
So yes, it would get cold.
Yeah.
So yes, my wording I believe is better. Unless he'd be saying like even in the winter I'd be wearing so many jackets and sweaters and snow pants I'd be hot anyways.
Yeah, like it basically like for us Canadians and us Ontarians, they're effectively in the same like temperature range or like climate range and stuff that like Timmins or Thunder Bay would be.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's they're on the latitude. They're probably like around or slightly above Timmins or Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Just going, and that's just based on the Google map.
Yeah.
Like lining and stuff like that. So.
But I shall continue.
Mm-hmm.
It was bigger than an aircraft hangar, and I think me and Jack were both reminded of the same place upon arrival. I believe that me and Jack should be flipped around to Jack and I. I believe that's the correct word.
That's the polite way.
Yeah. I don't believe this one was brought up. It's an entire paragraph sentence. It's a para sentence.
A paratense or centigraph.
Yeah.
Look at this centigraph.
Yeah, the thought of it makes me.
I kind of want to caption that, and just whenever we have and for this one, look at this centigraph.
That's gonna be a running joke now. Good job.
Okay. Awesome.
I remember seeing one of those in regards to Warframe because there was a weapon called an epitaph, and it had that.
Oh God!
Look at this epitaph, and it's like holding up the little the frame with like a picture of the gun in it.
Nice.
Anyways, I'll continue, or rather, I'll read it. As we journeyed down the road, and I assumed to the other end to see all that there was to see and get most out of my money, I made notes on my phone of the kinds of buildings I was seeing. The pixel screen glowing out into the darkness, pretty much the only thing reminding me of the actual decade. That is one sentence and an entire centigraph.
Yep. Wow.
Yes. So I kind of moved things around a little bit and made it 2 sentences. Maybe it should have been 3, but it's fine. I made notes on my phone of the kinds of buildings I was seeing as we journeyed down the road, comma, and I assumed to the other end to see all that there was to see and get the most out of my money, period. The pixel screen on my phone glowing out into the darkness, pretty much the only thing reminding me of the actual decade.
Done.
Cool.
Nice.
This next one I Googled after the fact and kind of canceled it out, but I'm going to bring it up anyways, because I wasn't 100% sure the definition of a mom and pop's and a family restaurant, like the differences between them all. Yeah.
Okay.
Because when it said, like, looked like it belonged in 1980, from a diner to 5 mom and pops, a family restaurant, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because I assumed that a mom and pops and a family restaurant were the same thing, but they're kind of not.
No, you're right.
It's like a mom and pop's business
yes.
it could be any type of business that's just very low key and just owned by a couple of people.
Yeah. The basic, it's a common phrase for like you're saying, like a business that is run by like a family or by like, again, a mom pa.
Yeah, like
sort of
like
business.
like Joe's No Frills or something.
That's probably, it probably got its start
Yes,
like that. Same thing with Walmart. Like Walmart started off as a mom and pa's called Walton's.
Yeah.
Like it was Walton's like grocers, or like it was like just a convenience store. Like a convenience store is sometimes a mom and pa, or like a pawn shop, like a low key pawn
like
shop.
A
franchise.
That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then like a family restaurant is when they deliver the food in just like a big platter and then you help yourself, right?
Family restaurant. Yeah, generally that kind of thing. Yeah, that's probably accurate.
Okay. Alrighty then. So I learned things, yay. Then this next one, not that I ever get a chance to see it, but were the two places connected in any way? So I feel like it should just be, but were the two places connected anyway? Like remove the in?
Yeah.
Because I don't know why they're connected in anyway. Like connected into what?
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, that almost seems like it doesn't need, like it, because it's talking about like this place in conjunction with Kittyland, right? Like, or the Kittyland location. So yeah, like that makes, it would make more sense if it was connected, like if they were connected anyway, not connected in any way. Oh, now I understand. Connected in any way, as in like are they connected? Yeah,
in any space way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh man.
Wow.
Connected in any way.
Yeah, that just needs a space then.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it just needs a space, yeah. Does it have a space, or is
it's
it
anyway,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that just needs a space. That's a simple typo.
I love the English language. Space can change so much.
That's really not on the English languages, like that's not on the English language. That's more on like a typo, on like somebody not forgetting to hit the space bar.
Yes, but it's partially a problem to the English language because it's two different words. One just has a space in between and one doesn't.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like a simple typo can completely change it. A simple miss of a space bar, which is something you hit 50,000 times while typing.
That could probably be said about most languages.
Probably.
Not just English.
Because that's my bit.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, my next one. My father worked in this place. He didn't keep any notes about what went on here, or ever tell me anything. He never came home shortly before they enclosed it. He disappeared. We weren't told why. So I feel the organization of that sentence is a little off.
Yeah.
So I reworded it to this. My father worked in this place. He didn't keep any notes about what went on there or ever tell me anything. Shortly before they enclosed it, he never came home. He disappeared. And we weren't told why.
Yeah.
It was kind of like,
now it's dialogue, but
yeah.
And this it could be because his first language is I apologize if this is inaccurate, but like is Ukrainian. So his English may not be his may not be his strongest suit. So like it might just be the way he's talking, but yeah, in terms of like sentence structure, that is wrong.
But here's the other thing. Boris wasn't walking around with a tape recorder recording everything word for word. He is recounting it from his memory. So he would be rewriting what he said based on what he was trying to say, not specifically word for word.
That is true. He does also say at the beginning of the story that he's like some of this is paraphrased and summarized. So.
So maybe it's Boris's struggle with the English language, even though he's like born American as far as the story.
Yeah, he's an American-born Ukrainian.
By the way, do you guys always see him as Boris from GoldenEye, like constantly with a Hawaiian shirt and everything?
I want to say no.
Originally it was no, but when he started becoming like a little bit inept in this with his like physical prowess, I was seeing him more and more nerdy, especially because he is straight up a nerd.
I saw him as a little bit more bulky, like not fat or anything like that, but like just sort of like a little bit bigger guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know.
Or you could go with Boris from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yep.
I don't remember.
Thanks. He's a squat Gomez looking character from Gomez Adams sort of looking guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Like he's got like pencil mustache and he's like squat compared to like his partner in crime.
He's monochromatic.
Yeah, because he's black white. Yeah,
but even like in colored stuff, he's still black and white. Even with colored backgrounds.
So I'm now that you brought it up, like I can't unsee Boris from GoldenEye. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You're welcome. Constantly clicking the pen bomb and everything.
I'm invincible.
Yeah, he proved he's invincible. He didn't die. He didn't even get injured. Well, he got injured a couple times actually.
He got injured a couple times. He was a boss though. Like getting stabbed in the leg by a friggin' long like rusty nail.
Yeah, and then spraining his ankle. And keeping going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I can go on, but I'll go on. I'll wait till like my actual thoughts because I have part of my actual thoughts of that.
Okay. And then this last one is near the end. In our world and reality, some company or governmental organization had created a device that could turn its users to ash. That had happened. Like I said in an email that showed up on the Signal Intercept story. Damn, the implications. So I feel like this part should be in a footnote after the attachment, because this whole thing has been a story in the past, but it's referencing the Signal Intercept story, which just happened. And I know he went in and proofread this and everything, but it's kind of a weird time skip for me because up until this point, it's been him talking about the past and the things that happened in the past and the things he got in the past. And then there's this one sentence about him talking about stuff in the current time, and then it goes back into the past again.
Okay. Yeah, because I was going to say, like, I was a little confused. Yeah, he's saying in the present, like, talking to, this part should be, like, out of the story that he's attached to. This should be in the email, like another email, like a sort of separate the attached story from the email that he had. That's what you're trying to get across, right?
Yeah, just specifically the part where he's talking about the Signal Intercept story. You could put that before the attachment or after the attachment or something, just not in the attachment. Or if it is going to be in the attachment, don't continue with other stuff in the past after it. Have this after that, at the very end of the story. At the very end of the attachment, rather.
Yeah.
That is the end of my grammar. I'm surprised I got none of your guys' grammars, and you guys got none of my grammars.
Yeah. That was... Wow.
There's too much grammar.
Yeah. But we will move on to actual thoughts. So first thing I have here, this is from date 12/11/20, from Boris to Tyler, subject Ukraine incident. This time I will do the voice. Really, Ty? You still want to do this? I saw your post on the story website, which I'm honestly surprised is still up. Don't you think it's really, really time to let it all go so we can move on with our lives? That's exactly what a possessed Boris by Mr. Funbun would say.
I mean,
referencing my theory from last time we tackled a Cold Relic story where Boris has been possessed by Mr. Funbun.
I had the exact same thing written down.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm saying he sounds very confused. Like, first off, when he says, "Really, Ty, you still want to do this?" First, he sounds really confused because he's saying, "Really? Thank you." So, joking
God damn
aside,
it.
joking aside of that, though, I said, wasn't Boris the one who was sticking around after the signal intercept and continuing to check things out, and only ran home because there was some guy in the woods? He didn't seem ready to give up at all.
Yeah.
I said, maybe Fun Bun did take his
then
body. He's not himself anymore. Get that man a Snickers.
God damn it. Nice. Now, then again, we have to put it in perspective here. There's been a time jump between the last story and this story. The last story was set in Signal Intercept. Their events there was in 2016. Liminal Warehouse took place 2 years later in 2018, and then this story was posted in 2020. So. Yeah, so the events of Liminal Warehouse actually, like the events that like he's recalling in the email, like in the attachment, that happened in 2018, and the email correspondence, if you notice, the email dates are 2020.
How do you know the attachment is from 2018?
So it does actually say it in the story. It says it's been 2 years. These events have happened like 2 years prior. Because at the end, our hero woke up 2 years ago from the dates on the emails, and then during the story earlier in the story, Boris said that it took them 2 years from Signal Intercept to plan this Ukrainian trip. So, and then out of fiction, like not in the story itself, on the Cold Relic website, they actually give you like the dates of when these events happened.
Oh.
So like under Signal Intercept, dates are 2016, and a little bit of it takes place in 1985, which is like when the guy was telling his story about finding the place in Pennsylvania.
So everything that happened in the attachment happened after Signal Intercept.
Yeah, this all happened 2 years after Signal Intercept.
Okay, then that is on me not getting a full grasp on the time frame of this. So my previous mention about taking that bit out and putting it after the attachment does not matter anymore.
I was actually going to counter you at the time about that, but as I kind of thought about it, like I think you were still you could still like have it removed from the actual attachment and like have it like sort of him as an afterthought in his email correspondent.
Yeah,
it's like,
but it doesn't,
because this all happened like 2 years ago. So no.
And honestly,
yeah,
like
so
while we're talking about the time frame, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
The reason that I thought it was where it was is because of this line. Of course he did. The loser even typed up 50,000 people used to live here, but then they played killer laser tag in an email. It's not really close to those places. This warehouse he trapped down isn't the same one where the VCR system manual is found either. So based on that information, I placed it somewhere after laser tag and before Electric Rabbit.
Weird, but they didn't even know Boris before Laser Rabbit, or before Laser Rabbit,
before Electric Tag.
Yeah, before Electric Rabbit, they didn't even know Boris. Like Boris came in from the Electric Rabbit incident, so.
Yeah, but didn't they find the manual? Like
in Laser Tag in the Laser Tag story. These people like Jack, Kate, Tyler, and our hero and Boris. They weren't even the ones in that story. Like that story was something that our hero recovered from like the dark web, like from some abandoned, lost toy forum, like that story.
Yeah, the whole system manual thing for the VCR is what kind of confused me, because I was thinking like he's talking about like it's not the same one where he got the system manual, but I'm pretty sure he had the system manual in Electric Rabbit, right? Because he's been using it.
I think he did, yeah.
So honestly, that part, I was thinking backwards on it. That's what confused me and screwed that up.
Okay. All right. Well, no worries. I mean, we're dealing with a timeline, so sometimes that gets... Like, also, with, like, the date lines in the emails are handy, but also, the website, Cold Relic website actually has a really good categorizing for like dates, author, locations, like back, and even gives you like a background of what's going on and a summary, like before you jump into the story. So, in fact, perhaps I've been sending you guys, out of like behind the scenes audience. I've been linking the creepypasta wiki stories to my fellow co-hosts. So maybe I'll actually send you guys the Cold Relic story page more like for the next one.
Sure, if you want.
Okay.
I guess you are right. So because it says they had a fight in 2019 about how he didn't get anything out of their trip. So it was before 2019 at least. Yeah.
Because like after they got back from the trip, Boris wasn't going to, like, he had written down this whole like document, but he wasn't going to give it to Tyler because they had a fight of some kind.
Okay.
So
sorry, I'll let you continue.
No, it's cool. Next thing we have here, Mr. Funbun is possessing Boris, and that kind of goes away like as the story goes on. It's like, all right, maybe he's not possessed. Or maybe it's the long game, like the long con. It's like, yes, I am still Boris. Boris is me. On to the next thing here, though. From date 12/11/20, from Tyler to Boris, subject Ukraine incident. Let's at least get it out there for our readers, or even just me. Wow! It took us 2 years to plan the trip, and not only did I not go, I also didn't get anything from you to help me continue my research, regardless of if the rest of you don't care anymore. So not the timeline thing aside, like that's actually not what I was bringing up in this quote. I like how Tyler, who's fairly young compared to the rest of them, hasn't been able to, but is also the most enthusiastic and like interested in all of this and like recovering this like for their archives and stuff. I like how he had, because he's the youngest and stuff like that, he hasn't been able to travel that much in the last few stories, and it kind of makes a lot of sense because like he may not be allowed, like he might still like be living with his parents or whatever.
Is he that young?
I always kind of thought that he was like in his like early 20s at least.
I assumed all these people were the same age.
No, like he was. It mentions in Kittyland when Tyler shows up, he's younger than they are, and then like the gang, like Kate, Jack, and our hero are all about the same age, around like their mid 20s, and then Boris is slightly older than they are in like his like early 30s, and then so like like they're all like about like. They're all roughly around the same age, like within like a decade or two, or within a decade and a half of each other. Like they're all the same age in that perspective of like being a couple of, like within a decade or so. But yeah, and or maybe he just didn't have the funds or access or the funds like to like go to Ukraine. Whereas like the adults or like the more not the adults, the more adult like characters, or the more like the characters that own a house the more independent like characters have access to like passport and going to places and stuff like that. So I that's what I liked about it, was I liked that Tyler was sort of like, he's the one who's so enthusiastic about this, but he's stuck just sending people off to do his stuff.
Yeah, that was one of my actual notes about this, like him bitching about like it took us 2 years to plan the trip, and not only did I not go, blah 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 blah. Like he's complaining that he didn't go, but nowhere in the story did it say why he didn't go. It's just left to us to assume. Like, if he is that young, then I guess that makes sense. But because my stupid brain didn't remember that they're not all the same age and they're not all adults that can go do things.
It's not... to be fair, again, like, these stories are long, and we've had, like, several months between certain stories that we've, like, read. So, like, I'm not going to fault you for not remembering that kind of stuff. But I'll move on to my next one here. From date 12/16/20, from Boris to Tyler, subject Ukraine incident. By the way, you're wrong about me not sharing it to anyone. Kate's read it. She was actually more demanding about reading it than you were. Oh, snap! You just got served, Ty!
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, that's just my one. It's like, actually, you're wrong. I did share it with somebody. Kate read it.
I shared it with someone more important.
more mature. And then like another one here. This time it was me and Jack, the guy who until recently didn't want to get involved with all of this. It took me way too long to realize who Jack was.
Oh, really?
Like bringing up like what I just said to you, like the fact that we've read these stories like over the course of like several months. Even like I think the first time we read these stories was like almost a year ago. Like the first stories and stuff. He was like, yeah, he was the guy in Kittyland with our hero and Kate who decided he didn't want much to do with any of this stuff. And like that's why it was just Kate last time when we saw them. I spent the better half of this story trying to figure out who he was.
Oh, really?
Like I thought he was a new character.
I did originally, but around that point, I'm like, oh, okay, it's probably the other Jack then.
It legitimately took me till they're like they were trapped in the bookstore, and they're telling their stories about like why they're here and why they're doing this, all that stuff, and I think it was like Laszlo that says like, that what happened to you in that place in Florida? I was like, wait, that place in Florida? And then I was like, right, there was a third person, like not just Kate and our hero. There was Jack. But like I thought there was the longest time. Actually, yeah, which is hilarious because like in that story they forgot about like that whole event. Yeah. No, what I also like for like the longest time I thought Jack might have been like the guy from Pennsylvania that gave Boris the engine parts and stuff. Like maybe he joined him and stuff like that because he was also older, like slightly older than they were. So he again had the funds and access to travel across the globe. But no, it's Jack from Kittyland, and goddamn it took that long for the story for me to figure that out.
I mean, it's all good. Also, I don't fully remember. What was the main reason that he wanted to come along? Do you have a note on that, or?
I do have it later on because he actually brings it up
then
in his writing.
Say something with it then.
Okay. And then next thing here. Okay, I have to ask. Tyler helped set up a lot of this, right? When he first told you about the address of the warehouse, did he think it was Chernobyl or Pripyat? I know Centralia was on his mind when things were happening in Pennsylvania. I sighed. Of course he did. The loser even typed out 50,000 people used to live here, but then they played killer laser tag in an email. But it's not really that close to those places. This warehouse he tracked down isn't the same. Isn't the same one where the VCR system manual was found either. Well, I guess that shuts down a theory I had about from last session or from the last story we did, where I thought the laser tag story might have more of a connection in the next story.
I mean, it does.
And then I have an update until the end. It's like that fucking like you duke us out with like because like I actually kind of appreciate it by the end of the story. It's like they like the whole time the story is like it was sort of like what we said in the last story with the signal intercept. It's like you think it's not going to be Centralia, and then it was in Centralia. But it wasn't. Like they were like giving us these red herrings, and to this story they were kind of doing that where it's like it's not going to be about the laser tag thing. And like we have no information, we haven't been able to find any clues as to like the origins of this warehouse until that last little bit where Laszlo reveals that he actually had information and has all the clues and stuff, has some more clues for the mystery to keep going.
It's funny that you say that because I thought the complete opposite. Because reading through the story, they're constantly referencing laser tag, so it's like okay, they're bringing up information about laser tag, cool, and they're saying oh this facility. They probably did experiments here with optical things and lasers here. And they did this as a laser training facility to prep for attacking America. Like it was constantly referenced through the whole thing.
They were referencing, but I honestly thought it was a red herring until the end. Like I thought it was something else.
I guess it was my own want for there to be more about laser tag. Because I mentioned that previously. That kept me optimistic.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And then my next one here, I realized that if I actually had any real worries about radioactive particles, I would have brought gloves and masks. I think I mostly just wanted to hear the dosimeter click a few times. I had bought it off eBay years ago and never really got the chance to try it. And to that, I was just like, you planned this trip 2 years in the making, and you didn't even pack gloves or a mask. Like, that's urban exploring 101. Like, especially if you're going into like an old derelict building, from like 30 years ago that's been abandoned for 30 years. Like, it just seemed like even if you're like you packed a dosimeter, like, wouldn't you want to maybe bring some gloves and masks, like, as well as the dosimeter? Like, wouldn't that like go hand in hand with that?
He's not a professional.
And yeah, it does say later, he does bring up that he's not a professional urban explorer or something like that. But it's like, you don't get to mock the ill-fated German urbenex guys, like, when you didn't even prepare for like half the stuff that you should have.
I don't know.
I'm still calling it. Like, I'm calling Boris on his bullshit in this one. I'm still on Team Boris, but I can still like critique him.
All right, that's fair.
But my next one here, he seemed relieved about that. Probably glad that he hadn't repeatedly exposed himself to some rays throughout all of his scavenging treks in here. Okay, so I got to bring this out. I understand what it was saying, like his scavenging treks, like as in like his scavenging trek, like journeys in here. But I definitely had to double take because I thought he was like scavenging Star Trek memorabilia out here. Like, maybe this place was the HQ for the Ukrainian Trekkie Con.
Wow.
Like, that was my like knee jerk reaction when I heard like his scavenging treks. Like, I was like, God damn it.
Weird, but okay.
Nerd.
Yes, nerd.
But I digress. On to the next one. My first guess about the purpose of this site was that it felt like some sort of Soviet training ground, where soldiers of the USSR could go to live out invasion fantasies. Fun fact, this is an actual thing, like, across the world.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there are like these kind of sites in like the Soviet Union, or like the former Soviet Union, and not just like in Russia, and like the Americans have done this, like China, North Korea, like all that kind of stuff. Like, there's images out there if you Google Cold War like town simulators, the town simulation sites. Like, they have that kind of stuff out there. Just these weird Americana set drops that they've installed so that they can like know how to they can train on how to navigate an American town in case of they go to war.
Yep. When I read that, I was like,
and again, yeah, like,
wouldn't there be signs of gunfire or American target dummies around if that was the case, though?
Not really, actually, because like they don't like they might have it like they might have like specialized spots set up, but like otherwise, like, it's more or less just for like navigating that kind of environment.
Walking down the street,
They might not actually. Well, no, like walking through the street, or like they might not even have like actual like live fire.
Yeah, it was like a
exercise.
laser thing, so it was like a big laser tag area.
Yeah.
Because this is a big laser tag story
but
where they talk about laser tag a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of, not this next quote.
Oh. Well, that's...
You see that? I said, pointing to some damage in the sidewalk under the light, and making sure my hand didn't go through the bubble. There were huge, lengthy claw marks in the concrete, like a really strong bear. Like strong bear. Strong like bear. Like a really strong bear had tried to dig and tear its way into it. Were those always there? Jack wondered. Definitely starting to get some like From Beyond vibes as like this story goes, like with the like some Tillinghast resonator sort of vibes, where like these like as soon as like those strange lights, like the street lights were shown, and like how what their effect was, I was like, oh, we're definitely gonna have some like weird phasing tech or something, and there's going to be some kind of like dimensional shambler or something that's going to like come out of the spheres of influence. I also got a little bit of Gargoyles vibe, like claw marks. What could leave claw marks in solid stone? That was like the opening line from Elisa Maza in the original Gargoyles episodes.
Also, yeah, I forgot that potentially the damage is only in the like secondary world, the secret world that it's in.
Yeah.
Because I was
also yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, like, do people come in and actually like fix the buildings and the damage after the creature does all of its murdering? Because it made a lot of damage.
We don't know. Yeah, so maybe the like that's why they have the security cameras. Like maybe they, and especially like since what happened later in the story where like Boris destroys the fuck out of the electronics in it, like the electronic controls. Like it's like, are they going to get notification that it's no longer working, so they're going to send somebody out?
Oh yeah, maybe.
And then moving on, here we got as I ran across the parapet, I glanced over to my left to see that I was just inches from the spherical glow, while the top of the lamp itself was still some 10 feet higher than all of these rooftops. If only we could turn them off. Okay, so throughout this story, I kept getting confused where the globes of light were emanating from, like, or even where they were positioned on the street lamps. Because, like, earlier, they had to make a running. If they wanted to go down the center of the street, they'd have to make a running leap down the center of the street to make to maybe get over the intersecting globes or the intersecting orbs. Is how I read it. But now that they're up, but now they're eye level on the rooftops with these of these fake buildings, and the street lamps are 10 feet higher than that. So like I feel like I was like missing something in the writing, like while I was reading it. It's like like because the way I was envisioning it was that like they were street lamps that were high up, and like it creates a bubble, like with the epicenter being like the orb at the top of the street lamp. So like before I heard like they'd have to do like a running leap over the like over or through the sphere of influence, I was thinking that like maybe they'd have to just like sort of shimmy down the center of the street, like under the two intersecting globes, but they said running leap.
Yeah, that's what I don't get, because the globes, as far as I know, well, I actually 100% know, the globe's influence touches the street, because at the start when Boris is examining it, he's examining the street, and it on the asphalt showing the claw mark and the weird dust and everything. So it does reach down to touch the street. So that makes me think like later on when they're running across the street and having to jump through them, why jump? Why didn't they just run through it? Jumping didn't help at all. If anything, it would slow them down, right?
Yeah, I think to me, I think it's just like some of the writing is it kind of muddies the details of like where these globes are, or we're just idiots. Because like it seems clear to me that like when they first introduced the streetlights, all right, they're up a couple of like maybe like 10 or 20 feet up in the air, and when they go on, they create this bubble with the epicenter at the top of the streetlight. So like, and they're on either side of the street. So there's like a sort of a middle ground that's like kind of like narrow. Like there's some spots that have like a window of opportunity to like squeeze through them, like down the center of the street. But it was easier for them to get up onto the roofs on the side of the building of these side buildings and avoid them entirely.
Yeah, all the light stuff was really confusing to me as well, because when they first turned on, it sounded like there was ample space in between each one because of how spread out they were. Yet they couldn't just walk down the street for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's what was throwing me off.
I think what it might be is so in between each one, on the same side of the street, there's a section of shadow. However, The two lights, one on one side of the street, one on the other side of the street, they intersect. So you can't just walk down the street. But if you get around, if you go up on the roof and get past one light, you could theoretically walk to the other side of the street. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, like sort of like zigzagging around them.
Yeah, or just
like,
keep going over the roofs. But you can't just go down the street because there's no straight line down the street. You would have to go around them because they're like rectangles. Like there's a rectangle and then there's a thin rectangle of shadow and then a rectangle of light and then a rectangle of shadow, that kind of thing, all the way down the street across the entire width of the street.
Actually,
I think that's what I thought he was saying. However, after the fact, when the building crashes down and they're like, we have to run across the street, and they have to go through the light for some reason, even though in my head there should just be a clear line of shadow that they can run through. I was very confused.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking at the and to even add further confusion about the locate, like the situation. The story describes the lights as being like there's a light on either side of the street and like they intersect in the middle. Like the bubble intersects in the middle like a Venn diagram. I got that. That was clear. But the image that's on creepypasta.wiki shows that they actually are like the lights are like there's one on the left side and then there's one down the way on the right side, almost like a zigzagging pattern along the street. According to the image that's on Google or that's on the creepypasta.wiki
and this
site.
image was done by Tyler. This was not a photograph taken.
Yes, this was a concept. This is like much like some kind of like concept art piece. Yeah.
So I wouldn't hold much weight on that.
Yeah, because the creature is on the rooftop in the picture.
Yeah. And I'll get back to like his drawings and later, but yeah, it just adds for there's some definite confusion with the positioning of the globes of light that were where this creature could attack from.
Yeah. It kind of seemed like the creature, each time that they were encountering the light, it was in a completely different orientation. Like just for the sake of making it difficult instead of having it consistent.
Yeah.
Yes, you can continue.
Okay. Yeah, and actually, speaking of the creature, and also, I think later I'll have something about what you just said with the like creating making it a problem for them and stuff like that. I'll go into the first thing with the creature. So here's the quote: "It was not at all organic, and was designed to emulate an actual great predator in only the most basic of ways. Still, it really did have a cat-like posture and looked closer to a tiger than anything else, a robotic war machine with sharp, serrated claws and jagged plates of solid steel armor, their edges jutting out in strange oblonged angles." So maybe my theory here, my working theory is like the origins of this creature and stuff like that. Maybe the Soviets inadvertently created some kind of bleed effect when they were experimenting with those like phasing lights, like or like their optic lights and their laser tech and stuff they were working on. Like perhaps they accidentally created a bleed effect to an alternate future or a parallel universe where the tech to build mechanized war cats had occurred. I wonder if the other place that the machine cat comes from is actually an irradiated wasteland remnant of Earth, like the Terminator future, almost like that kind of style.
And everything was covered in dust and everything.
Well, yeah, because they reference to string theory and quantum superposition that's brought up in the recovered research paper later in the story sort of hints to that, like that theory being the strongest, where like they effectively created they were able to create a portal or like a bleed phase to another reality or another timeline. And also the exotic dust samples of radioactivity that they find, and like it reveals that like it was some kind of nuclear exchange on both sides, not just like the Soviets or the Americans. It was both. So, and no one knows about that like nuclear exchange in our reality. So, yeah, it definitely feels like this warehouse basically has a bleeding portal to an apocalyptic Earth where we created war machines and nuked ourselves into the Stone Age. Also, did the folks who developed Generation Zero read these stories? This sort of reminds me like the hunter-killer robots from that game.
I think Gen Zero was released before this story was released. I think
was it?
so.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah, I think this was posted in 2020. So yeah. Also,
Gen Zero is 2018.
I did also like reading through this story. I always get jazzed about like the weird like tech that they pull up and stuff like that, and it was definitely giving me some ideas for like Eclipse Phase or like a Tales from the Loop style or a Tales from the Loop style game idea. And Tales from the Loop is actually more closely to like Generation Zero, mainly because Generation Zero and Tales from the Loop were. Yeah, and they refused to acknowledge that, even though they developed that game in the same fucking town as the artist and author of the Tales from the Loop stories. And they knew members of the team knew the guy. It knew Simon Stalenhag, and they not once brought up that, oh yeah, we're doing a game that's very similar to your artwork and stuff like that.
Is he even in the special thanks or anything of that game?
No, he's not. In fact, they went out of their way like that. Like I liked the game Generation Zero for the most part, but like the studio was kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Like they actually almost went out of their way to deny that like Simon Stalenhag was even an inspiration to their game.
That's so dickish. Like
yeah. Like yeah. But anyway, like the whole idea of like Soviet like Soviet mechanized like robots like attacking and stuff like that sort of it comes from Generation Zero, but also like more prominently from actually Tales from the Loop, because Tales from the Loop has like deals with government facilities that like use like particle colliders and lasers and like they've developed like advanced robotics and stuff like that, and they show up in like the more mundane like everyday world as a problem. So and there's even like some later stories in the Tales from the Loop world where it's like where they deal with portals to an apocalyptic Earth, or like or an Earth that has been changed dramatically as a result of like all the super science fuckery. But yeah, so I was getting vibes of that, and I always love that kind of stuff. It's probably why I gravitate towards Tales from the Loop and like the Cold Relic stories in general, because I love that kind of weird tech in fiction. But moving on. Again, I apologize for not doing the Boris voice right now, but it seems to be it's easier for me to just read it normally. Until that metal creature emerged from the shadows again, stepping into the nearest light like a cat on the prowl. As much as it frightened me, I figured it wouldn't be able to do anything to us as long as we stayed in the darkness. The problem was, the thing possessed some form of intelligence and was especially aggressive or territorial. And so this is in regards to like the creature has to stay in the light, but it finds a loop. It finds a way to bypass that, or to like kind of like navigate its situation by attacking the lamppost and causing its light of influence to move into the direction of our characters here. And as I was reading the story, like seeing this was my my thought on regarding the threat level of like their predicament. The fact that this robotic creature can't pass physically out of the spheres, and I like how the author, like, we get to see the author's process of solving the problems or working with the limitations they've placed in their story, and its universe. Like, again, the cat is stuck physically in the light, and it becomes incorporeal or ceases to exist when it's not in the light spheres. So, but it's an intelligent killing machine, so it figures out that it has to move or like find a way to push the light into the direction of our characters so that it can attack them. And like later on, like, yes, the characters are safe up on the buildings, but what if there was a second group that shows up and is the reason why the lights came on and shows why those lights are dangerous? Like, well, that's like basically like the way the story was progressing. I was kind of appreciating the author setting up these problems and setting up these like non-problems, like, oh, like they can climb up climb up on the they just won't turn on the lights and they'll be fine. Oh, somebody turned on the lights. Well, we'll just hide up on and climb up on the buildings and jump through the shadows. Problem solved. Oh, we get to see the people who turned on the lights and also reveal the monster and show the threat of the monster. And then have the monster be intelligent enough to try and like foil their plan of just hopping across the buildings and over and over again. I guess what I'm trying to say is like I really appreciated like being able to see the author's process of like solving his own problems that he's created for like keeping the story going.
I don't know if I would call it problems, but I basically have a note of
like
the same
problems
thing.
For him, like, but like solutions for them.
I pretty much have a note of the same thing,
like,
saying that I really like the escalation of the simple stay with the light mechanic that's going on. Like first to stay with the light, then they have to cross the roofs, then the monster moves the light, and then they're brought down to the same level as the monster to make it even more spooky.
Yeah, it almost feels like how a video game would progress in a way. Like they'd show like the situation, and then like, or they'd show you like how, like what the problem is. Then here's the solution. Then here's the next problem. Here's your next solution. Like you got to figure out the next solution, and it keeps going from there. Like that's the game designer doing that in the author in this story. And it's also like in movies, it does that sometimes with like survival horror movies specifically, where like the characters are trapped and like they have to figure out a solution to get away, to no longer be trapped. And now we get back to the point where I brought up earlier, Gamer, about Jack's reasoning and stuff like that. It's not an obsession, but more like a calling that almost feels like a mental infection. And to that, I was like, that's an obsession, Jack. I also like to call it, in my neck of the woods, the investigation sickness. Like, and honestly, that's I think why Jack is doing all this, and like why he's putting this out here, is that he's contracted that same situation. Like he's come into contact with something, or he's been introduced to something that is so weird and strange to him, but it compels him at the same time. Like it's just, that's how obsession tends to even happen. Like it's the investigation sickness. It's something that I'm joking about in these stories, but it is something that happens in both real life and also in a lot of times in fiction.
Okay, but the problem is early on it says that Boris said that he doesn't know why Jack's here. Until now, he wasn't even interested in these things. So it's not like he's been obsessed with this stuff. This is his first foray into like exploring and doing this stuff. So how is he already obsessed?
So the thing is, you have to bear in mind is that Jack has been involved in this whole situation, but he at the end of Kittyland, like he got his memory fucked up, or like it was some kind of weird alternate reality thing that like happened or something. And he, like, whereas Kate wanted to keep going with like figure out what's going on, Jack was like, I've got a family and some of that. But I'm guessing like this is some subtext stuff of like Jack tried to stay away from all this because he's going to start raising a family, but he's still intrigued by it and he can't get that out of his head, and he's worried that obsession will start bleeding into like his family life. And so that's why he's come out here. He explains it, and in his part of his story, he's come out here to try and like maybe find a way to like break that obsession or just like to satisfy that obsession, so that he can go back to like his regular life.
Well, I guess he's been keeping it on the down low then, because in the previous story, Boris responded to Kate saying Jack wants nothing to do with any of this, like at all.
Yeah, that's what he said, and he put it on he tried to get away, but he got dragged back in because of his own, like his mind was pushing him towards this. So yeah, like it's very subtle, and it's subtext stuff that takes like a couple of stories, like knowing what, like reading a few things in the previous stories, like you kind of get some of the context, but yeah, it's very subtle, but it's
Mhm.
there. And my next one here, I think I brought this up earlier about like Laszlo. Like the next day, Laszlo revealed that like he had been keeping some secrets. He actually had some stuff, like some relics, including something related to the laser gun. And it's like, and this was like right at the very end of the story, and I kind of like eye rolled a little bit because I was like, of course he does. We got to keep the mystery train going.
Yep.
Toot toot. Like,
Tune in next time.
yeah, exactly. Like because like this has become a serialized series now, like a super serialized series. And again, I don't hate that. It's just like I kind of eye rolled because it's like it's a trope of like this story could have ended with them finding nothing at this place and just experiencing this weird thing, and it just goes back up on the website because it's a weird Cold War related artifact of horror. And then like the next story will just have like they found some information off like that they'll explain how they found it in the next story. But of course we have to get that. Of course he was hiding some information and like some materials that they needed or that they wanted. And going a little bit further into that, we have this part here. In a file folder were the following: research papers on light and laser technology, schedules for urban combat training in the town, a list of radio frequencies, though it lacked context, a draft for a research paper that made multiple references to string theory, quantum superposition, and Schrödinger. There was absolutely nothing about the machine that stalked us, but maybe it really did force a sudden evacuation before anything could be written about it on site. And finally, the real find, written in Cyrillic, a technical manual for a full laser tag toy set, complete with cross-section of the gun and vest. Yes, that's the biggest find. A fucking laser tag manual. Priorities, Boris. You just escaped a derelict Soviet testing site for phase tech and a fucking mechanical tiger from another
There's an
timeline.
instruction manual.
But no, the real find was the fucking laser tag manual.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. It seemed a little that like I kind of like I was pulled out of the story a little bit of like man, the obsession is strong with these guys. Like we just survived the most outlandish sci-fi bullshit of their lives, but they're way more interested in this fucking manual about laser
because
guns.
it made it all worth it.
I guess in that light, yeah, that's sort of why he's like so excited about it.
That was
because
the reason they
they
going
didn't
in
just
there in
come
the
here
first
for nothing.
place, was to
Yeah.
find something about laser tag or anything about that company, and they did. However, they also found all this other shit, but they did find it.
That is true. Yeah, I guess I guess my the payoff like that was meant for the story sort of just like pulled me out because it was like all the other weird shit that had just happened, and that was
Yeah.
his priority. So, but yeah,
It's like
I'll move
climbing a
on.
mountain and killing a dragon to get like a donut. But it was the only donut in
Yeah.
the land.
Or no, climbing a mountain like you're like Mount Everest, fighting a horde of Yetis on the way up there, getting up to the top, planting your flag, looking out at the sunset, radioing in. It's like, so you made it up to the top? Yep. Anything else exciting? Nope.
Like, don't even talk about it.
I made it to the top.
That's
That was what
true.
was important. Yeah, exactly. Just never brings it up. Like it's like, that's no biggie. Fighting a horde of Yetis, that's fine. That's a
par for the
Tuesday.
course.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I was like my critically silly mind was going with that. It was just like, but moving on to the next ridiculous thing. The next morning, the three of us got together for breakfast at the bakery, and then Laszlo was nice enough to take us all the way down to Kiev. We said our goodbyes, and he drove off into the proverbial sunset. 2 days after losing his arm.
Was it only 2 days?
It was only like 2 days. Like they booked their time at the hostel for like 3 days. The first day and night, they were were resting up, and then they went to the to the to the site. Then that night, they ran out of the site with a mortally injured Laszlo to the nearest doctor, who then told them to go to the nearest hospital. And then a day went by, and he was released after a day. And the next day, they were having food and the breakfast at that bakery, and Laszlo drove them with one arm, I presume on medication, to Kiev, to Ukraine's capital.
Yeah, maybe they should have stayed.
and then drove. yeah, exactly. Like that. Like okay. Thus far, like my notes here are: thus far, this story has been pretty good about logistics of things and grounding it in some kind of like base reality, so that like it's not too outlandish. Except for Laszlo's recovery from losing half of his fucking arm. Like. He even and like yeah, like I even say like he even drives them to Kiev, like a couple of hours drive down through the country into the capital. Like, damn, those Ukrainians are fucking hardcore. Yeah. I just like I lost my shit by the end of the story. I was like, what? Like priorities with Boris and the laser tag thing. Laszlo being a fucking champ and like driving them one-armed and on medication into the capital of Ukraine. Like, goddamn it. And then the next thing we have here is actually from another. So it's from the next email, I think, entry from date 12/19/20 from Tyler to Boris. Subject: Ukraine incident. Nah, man, liminal space. It's kind of a concept right now on the internet, mostly pictures of places that feel too empty and a little ominous or threatening. Like a long hallway in a dead mall that makes you feel vulnerable as you pass through it. Just Google it. You'll see. In that fake town, you getting ready to cross the threshold, as they call it, really fits the title. And yeah, so he talks about, he also goes on about, yeah. Then he goes on. It's like I'll read the story a few more times, whip up some of my crappy art, and get it on the site by the end of the month. So I like how this story is sort of Cold Relics' like love letter in a way to backrooms or like abandoned liminal spaces. Like I just found that really neat because like again I really like the idea of like the back rooms, and like I follow multiple Twitter feeds that like post like images of liminal spaces, like just these weird, creepy, abandoned and empty expanses of architecture. And the fact that we're reading this story that's kind of a love letter to that was kind of neat. Also, I like that they actually that Tyler actually references the sketchy art on the Cold Relics website. But I do find it weird that the user Digigekko, and I'm still assuming that Digigekko is Tyler or whoever the author of the Cold Relic stories are, doesn't use that sketchy artwork on the wiki version. Because yeah, the liminal warehouse sketch is like a very sketchy drawing of the robot passing through the light.
Fuck's sakes. Every single time with one of these fucking stories, there's different art on this site compared to the one that I have.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's almost like I kind of haphazardly do it to get that reaction. to get that genuine reaction. So off recording, me and Gamer were talking about what we thought the creature looked like, this robot thing, and Gamer, what did you think the creature looked like?
Well, for me, when I first saw it, I saw it as a I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I believe I mainly saw it as either a black or gunmetal metal construction with like exposed hydraulics and all that. but it's not like super bulky, and it's relatively realistic, quote unquote, in its shape, almost like the saber-tooth tiger Zord. Like it straight up looks like a tiger.
I mean,
No,
Zoid.
I mean Zord. I mean the Power Ranger one, honestly.
Oh,
The
Zord,
Zoid
yeah.
one is
Yeah, I
very like
gotcha.
extremely bulky, but the Zord is actually kind of
Mhm.
more slender, like a very slender, quote unquote, realistically shaped tiger with red eyes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely had like a couple of like it changed a little bit over the course of the story because like they kept bringing up like they kept like not seeing it or like half seeing it. So like when it first showed up, I thought it was just like some kind of tiger that like they had fucked around with like phasing tech, and so now it was this like tiger that was stuck in this liminal space or in this like weird like other space. But then like said that it was not organic, it was all mechanical, and so I kind of had basically the look of like the tiger or the big cat transformer from the Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, Transformer like. That's another way that I could. That's the one that I was thinking of.
Yeah, and also, and that was mostly because of the description of like the metal paneling and like the metal plating was like kind of protruding at weird angles. So it was like kind of like a lot of those like Transformer designs are like really intricate and like almost kind of confusingly
Also, I
intricate.
believe this is the art that you're referring to that he did on the Cold Relic site. It's like all black and white.
Yep. Yeah, that's basically the type of art he does for all of the Cold Relic stories.
I did not know that was a thing.
I thought I brought it up like in the last couple of ones.
You brought it up and I got pissed, but I didn't go to the website and click on the art. You just linked it.
Ah, I gotcha. Yep. And Mikey, what did you think the creature looked like?
Well, shouldn't the creature be white? Because it mentions that the colors in the spheres sort of disappear or become less.
Yeah, that's why I said it was like black or like a gunmetal gray.
Yeah.
Although it had clearly red eyes.
But they can't see it. It takes them a bit to see it, right? So if it's blending into that washed out color, I don't know.
See, I always just saw it like whenever it like went into the light, it was sort of like it had a darker. I always thought it had a darker hue because it was standing out amidst the light. Because again, like when it goes out of the light, it just ceases to exist or like kind of fades into the shadows and can't physically interact.
Now that I think about it, that art that he did is wrong because it doesn't show at all in the darkness.
Yeah.
That dark section should be completely gone.
Or even like dotted line almost. Just to again, like just to sort of illustrate that it's like there. It. Yeah.
Good job, Tyler. Yeah, but sorry, go ahead.
And there's also the other thing that it can move at 50 miles per hour, so it's moving really quickly between the lights in the first time we sort of see it.
Yeah, it's just basically a blur.
That being said, there was a couple of times where it just sat there in the light looking at them. So they had a very clear visual of this guy.
Yeah, they even had like a close up of it, like because it was like right there, waiting for one of them to like put any of their like digits or anything into the light so they interact with it.
But like the only thing we got that was a clear visual was it had red eyes, and I had a clear visual of of exposed hydraulics and stuff because it was constantly referencing the sounds of them and everything. But that's about all I had to go off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I was content with this. Like, it's some kind of robotic tiger creature. Like, it's a tiger bot. So, because it does reference that it's like it had the basic shape of a big cat.
Yeah,
or
but
a
even
tiger.
if it said like when it's referencing the metal, even if it was just gray metal, because then I'd be like, okay, it's a gray metal tiger with red eyes. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I still like, even without it saying that, I still kind of like defaulted to like just like a gunmetal, like you said, like a dark gray metal. So
it did refer to its armor as steel. I think that's maybe why I defaulted to that.
Mm-hmm.
Stainless steel armor.
So
it would be chrome, wouldn't it? Is stainless steel always shiny?
I don't know.
It is when you buff it.
Don't no. Yeah. But getting back to the story, and actually my last actual thought here. And it's basically like talking about like damn. So this is from again 12, 25, 20 from Boris to Tyler. Subject update. So this is like about 5 days after they last talked about like the liminal space and stuff like that. And he's like, damn, crazy how time goes by. He woke up 2 years ago today. I know what happened to him isn't exactly a story about lost Cold War history and relics, but if you're going to keep up your creepypasta library, no matter what happens to us, then you might as well work on it. I think it would fit. I think it would fit it on the. Oh, there's actually okay. I think it would fit it on the website. So first off, Grammar Inquisition, like last minute Grammar Inquisition. I think it should say, I think it would fit in on the website, not fit it on the website. But also, and that's our lean in to the next story of the Cold Relic series, because turns out our hero woke up from his coma 2 years ago.
Why was that just kind of like glossed over? But main character the entire story. Yeah, he woke up. He's fine. That happened 2 years ago.
Yeah, damn, it's weird. Yeah, and for some reason, in the last 2 years, Tyler's hasn't been able to bring himself to cobble together and complete the story. But now, because Boris has given him this completed story, he now feels compelled to finish that story. So it is sort of like, so what happened what happened after he woke up? Like, is he actually our hero, or is he Mr. Funbun?
I'm sure we're gonna find out.
Like,
but I feel like that story should be coming before this one.
Yes and no. Like, it's clearly like he didn't. Part of it is like, again, like they give a reason in the story why it's taken this long for them to like do it, is because Tyler hasn't really been able to bring himself to finish that story. Or to gather up the information that he needs to complete it and stuff until now. But honestly, like out of fiction, it's probably because the writer didn't feel like writing that story yet. Also, kind of, I kind of like the meta-ness at the end there, calling their site the creepypasta library, because there are a bunch of folks that are really like kind of net savvy, and again, like they're creepypasta fans. Like, there's definitely a Venn diagram between like anachronistic, weird, lost media and creepypastas. So,
yep.
But that's my actual thoughts. So, Mikey, the E stands for evil.
So, my first actual thought here is that there was a missed opportunity. So when they're in the car with Laszlo going to check out the site, here's the quote here. I liked the guy enough, but I needed a break from his jokes and stories. So there could have been a bunch of dad jokes or side stories just told by Laszlo.
Why dad
or
jokes?
At least one, or like a couple, and then have this line and just
it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like he has some character building for him.
Yeah, like maybe
it's not said that he was doing that enough that like it didn't happen a couple of times, and then he goes, "Okay, I want this to end so these jokes can end." You know?
Yeah, that's fair. Also, I was a little confused when he said like the dad jokes. Is like, but Jack's not the one talking about this, because Jack is going to be the dad.
You don't have to be a dad to make dad jokes.
I know.
Yeah.
You know that better than anyone.
My pain is real.
Did you do? And then my next actual thought here is in regards to where the story takes place. So, first we have the quote, when he first told you about the address of this warehouse, did he think it was in Chernobyl? I was like, okay, so based on that, we're not in Chernobyl.
No.
But then they're looking at the warehouse from the outside and talking about the shape, and it goes, it would be replacing and covering the original sarcophagus that locked away the destroyed Chernobyl reactor.
No. Okay. You're missing actually a thing that happened that they said right before that, where it was reminiscent to a new construction that was happening down south that would be replacing I think that I'm pretty sure that they say that, like, that it resembled the new installation that's being built around the current Chernobyl reactor.
Yeah, well, later, because they mentioned Chernobyl again, it clears it up for me, but it just took a while. So the next quote, he mostly avoided the question and instead shared his fascination with the giant building we had just seen, marking that it didn't look like it had been built to simply house something, but rather, like its possible counterpart in Chernobyl, it was made to keep something inside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear that this story also took some inspiration from the from Chernobyl as well, because again, like, they're in Ukraine. It involves a secret or like a facility that is used to contain something. Like, there's definitely some parallels in the story.
Yeah, it just, for whatever reason, I kept going back and forth, like, is this Chernobyl or not? Like,
okay, gotcha.
So,
and then even in like the dialogue, like when they're like telling their backstories, I think Laszlo is like, our second sarcophagus, like referencing the sarcophagus around it's actually called the sarcophagus, the installation that's built around the reactor core in Chernobyl. So, or it's dubbed that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, my next actual thought is just something funny. So the first time Laszlo speaks, I got a Scottish accent.
Why?
And I have the quote here.
Please.
Aye, the classics, right? Laszlo said with a laugh. There's mostly nothing inside the buildings. I've looked. Let's walk. I'll tell you what I knew.
Okay, but why?
Okay.
It's just probably because it started with I. So
I see.
It was doomed. It was doomed from the start.
Yeah, that's fair. That's entirely fair.
Aye, laddie. My name's Laszlo. Wow. Mikey, you so cray.
and then
So for the rest of the story, did Laszlo talk in a Scottish accent to you?
He did for a bit, but then it waned after a while because he didn't say I again to rekindle the Scottish.
Meanwhile, I was reading this entire story like I was reading a Metro 2033 novel, just as Artyom. Here in the Metro.
And yeah, but when they're talking about the purpose of the site, my mind went straight to it being a movie set.
Yeah.
Because they straight up mention Back to the Future.
To be fair, that film set for Hill Valley has been used in multiple movies.
Yeah, exactly. Like
we found it.
Yeah,
It was in Ukraine the whole time.
yeah. Why build another set if you've already got one?
Yeah, no fair. Yeah, I mean it's like when Hollywood goes to like Prague or like other Eastern European countries to film their movies because of tax benefits. that's what happened with the town setting for the Back to the Future and like Gremlins and stuff. They had this installation built in Ukraine.
Which explains why it was never dismantled, because they're going to use it again.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm. That's why the only security around the place is cameras. Because a silly camera. I'll shut up.
All right. So my next quote here. He didn't even bother to respond. He got on top of the roof's parapet, checked to make sure he had good balance, and without hesitating, picked up some speed and made the 5-foot-long jump to the top of the neighboring tavern. He made it look easy. To which my response is, yes, he did make it look easy. That's a very daunting 1.5-meter jump.
Yep. Also, I have to ask because you brought up the line. Did anybody else misread that the first time? It's like he jumped a $5 foot long.
Hell,
I definitely reread. I had to reread that because I added $5
Were you hungry
foot
at the
time. Probably.
No,
I could use a Snickers.
No, the only misreading I had was the quote here. And then, at long last, early in the morning, I arrived at my home in Buffalo with a few treasures to add to my lunchbox.
Nice.
I must have been hungry as well.
Yeah, that kind of does look like lunchbox, yeah, because it's a lockbox.
Yep.
All right. And then the scene that has the we get introduced to the tiger running 50 miles per hour.
Yeah.
He stops, and then the one German takes off running, and then it takes a while for the tiger machine to go after him, which is explained later that from a sitting position he sort of charges his pistons and whatnot to be able to strike at full speed.
Yep.
But at that point it doesn't explain that, so I'm just in my head, I'm like, why is it taking so long for the robot to react?
It did say it had to decide which one it wanted to go after.
And in the writing, that's showing that the creature is going after the person is still in the light, not the one that's in the darkness.
Yeah, but it still took the German got a few lights down the road.
Yeah.
Before it kicked in that, I'm going after this one.
I kind of just saw that as like showing again the ridiculous speed and threat that this thing has. Because like, yeah, this guy is like gonna be able to like outrun this guy. Nope, bam, it just needed a little bit of a charge before it attacked.
Well, no, he wasn't even charging. He was just sitting there. So if anything, maybe he was just playing with his food. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a head start. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, like a cat would. It was probably programmed to be like a hunter killer / like an actual like feline predator.
But that being said, I do agree with you, Mikey.
Wherever it came
took
from.
him a while, and it was weird. I expected him to immediately go after the guy that was running.
Mhm. Yeah. And then the next quote here. After seeing the hunter knock down a streetlight, I was worried that it would do the same to the one outside the store, which produced a glow that removed escaping through the windows as an option. To which my response was, finally, we have a name for this. The Hunter.
Yes. I mean, I never use it. I will always refer to this thing as the Tiger Bot.
I always called it the Hunter after that point. Because it had somewhat of a name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I like that it actually got a name.
Yeah, it is good that they actually gave it a name and not just a descriptor.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then I like the fact at the end that the radioactive dust that was examined has traces from multiple sources.
Yeah.
Because it either solidifies an alternate reality or that there was a mass mind wipe.
I'm pretty sure we're dealing with a phase to another reality or timeline, because like,
or it was our timeline, and then they had to correct it and wipe everyone's memories.
Alternate timeline to what originally happened. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a possibility. I'll give you that.
And that's the end of my actual thoughts.
All right.
My go.
Gamer.
The first one is out of order because I thought of it after the fact when you were talking about you're doing your run through. Basically, I'm asking why the lab coat was up on the roof, because if the creature was up there doing the damage, it probably would have crushed the building due to its weight. And if it got the scientist, the coat would go with the scientist, because when it's grabbed guys and take them away, they're just gone. So the only thing I can think of is a scientist was slashed on the back, but he managed to get away into the darkness, climbed up there, took the coat off, dropped it, and continued on. However, if that was the case, there would be like a blood trail, probably, considering the back was shredded, so his back would have been fucked.
Yeah, although maybe because it's so dark down there, like maybe Boris just didn't notice the blood, the dried blood stains on the ground. I was also going to suggest maybe it was a lab coat that was like down on the street ground, like, and like it got thrown off, it got taken off of one of the scientists when he was getting grabbed, and maybe some one of the other explorers that were in here found it, brought it up, and brought it up to the rooftop when the light went on for them, and they just left it there in a heap. But it is kind of weird that it's up on the. It is sort of like it's up there in the dark corner, away from the light, and where's the body? Because I was expecting a body, if I'm being honest.
Like it's just up there for the revelation that there's a creature out there. Meanwhile, that's just about to happen soon anyways, the actual revelation. So it was kind of unnecessary.
But it was... You say it's unnecessary. I honestly liked it because it added to more like... It kept stoking the fire of like my brain, where it's like, what the fuck is happening? Like what's in here with them? Like it kept stoking that for me. So
The difference
Yeah.
between you and me. Well, I mean, you saw the art too. You saw the Stalker art.
Yeah.
Of the,
Yes.
Oh, by the way, on the Cold Relics website under art, it's called Stalker, not Hunter. So great. Anyway.
Thanks, Tyler.
You saw the black and white image of the robot, right? Okay.
Yes. But no. Okay, actually,
Yes.
you mean while I was reading the story? No, because I pulled the story from the creepypasta.wiki site. I actually checked the Cold Relic site after I'd done reading it.
But did you look at the image on the creepypasta.fandom site?
Nope. I read the story, just the words.
Okay,
Didn't look
the
at
first thing
the
I
image.
did was I blew the image up, and right there in the background, there's a silhouette of a
See the
tigery-looking
monster.
thing with red eyes. So I knew that there was some sort of a tigery-looking thing with red eyes right from the get-go.
That's on the rooftop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It never makes it to the roofs in the
Not
story.
that you saw.
That's true. Yeah,
There were
yeah, that's
noises and stuff in the background.
Yeah.
I have a note on that as well. I forget where specifically. But basically, Tyler's saying, "Oh, right." In regards to the name, he's like, I thought of a cool name, the Liminal Warehouse. It sounds cool, and it doesn't give away what the villain is. Meanwhile, his freaking artwork gives away what the villain is. So
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
reason? Like, why bother trying to be coy about
God
it?
damn it, Tyler. Yeah. God damn it, Tyler.
Oh, Tyler. But I'll continue.
Yeah.
Where the hell was I?
The shredded lab coat? Yeah, okay.
I mark all them off as we talk about them.
Cool.
This is in regards to Horace not knowing why Jack wanted to come by. And he just said, at that point, I still had no idea why he wanted to come by with me as much as he did. And at that point, this is the second time in short order, like within a paragraph or two, that he's mentioned how unsure he is that Jack wanted to come. Like, it's a bit heavy-handed at that point, and by the end, at the reveal of why he came, I don't feel it was warranted to be so heavy-handed. Like, you could just say it once, and that's enough. Like, he doesn't know why he's there, but
Fair.
he's here. Like, it wasn't some huge revelation, you know?
It did. I will admit that, like, when I first read the story, I actually had some notes ahead of time, but I removed them because it was revealed to be like they were superfluous and like they were not really needed. But I'll bring them up, like bring part of it up now. It's just in that, like, I had notes and I had suspicions of Jack in that, like, that he was actually because I didn't remember who Jack was until like near the end of the story. So I thought he was like some new guy that like Boris knew, or like from maybe the online community, and perhaps he was a spy for the Shadow Group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why so there's going to be some reveal that he was actually here keeping tabs on what the Cold Relics folks were looking for.
Yep.
But that didn't happen. So yeah, like I kind of agree. Like they sort of made it almost like heavy-handed that like it could be misinterpreted.
Yeah, and at the point when they're all talking about their backstories and stuff, there's way more impact from Boris's and Laszlo's than Jack's. Jack's just like, I don't know, I've become a little obsessed with it, and I want to get some closure so I can go back to my normal life. Like, it's not as tear-jerking or pulling at your heartstrings as the other two.
Yeah, poor Boris. Yeah. Like, and also poor Laszlo.
Yeah.
Like, more so poor Laszlo, because like we actually get the reason why he comes out here, and also why he was so like trepidatious about like any kind of information, like some of the information he was withholding and stuff. Like, it was actually traumatizing. So.
I mean, Jack saved the day in a lot of ways because he kept Boris alive, and he was like Mr. Positive and making sure that people can jump and helping all the freaking time. So it's not like he shouldn't have been there. It's just his reveal wasn't very strong.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not super bad. Like, that's not like entirely negative about it. Like, I do feel like each character did bring their own like I think I loved all the characters really. Like, Boris was cool in his own in the ways that like I've come to expect Boris to be cool. Laszlo was actually like, I was surprised that like Laszlo was as fun as it was, and he also had an interesting character arc because like he was basically the pre-movie survivor of the horrible place that the characters now are going to again. So like there's a movie called Komodo that they did that where like the character, they showed like kind of a pre-kill scene, and like one of the characters survived that scene, and now they were going back to the same location like years later after like therapy and like dealing with after coping with the traumatizing situation. And that's kind of what the trope or niche that Laszlo filled in the story. He wasn't just their guide; he was also the original survivor of the situation. And then again, like you said, Jack was sort of upbeat and like sort of the Mr. Positive, and like he was he's the nice guy basically throughout this. So like it's sort of like his backstory wasn't as impactful, but I mean like he brought things to the table to kind of compensate for that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I just wish there was a better reason for him being there.
Fair.
Like it could have been anything. Like after thinking about it and reading through all the stories and seeing all the struggles you guys are going through, like one way or another, you guys are my friends and I want to help you out. Like that would be better than him just being like, I don't know, I have a slight obsession with it now all of a sudden for reasons. Or
like, maybe after what happened to our hero, like that's when he started like kind of helping a little bit more in behind the scenes, and then like now he's in one of the stories again. Yeah,
but I'll move on from there.
Okay.
So Jack is asking Boris about laser tag stuff when they're on the plane, and Jack says, "What if the guns themselves were mostly normal, but the vest had one of those exotic engine devices inside him to make them vaporize the wearer?" And then Boris in his head says it was obvious which of the Cold Relic stories interested Jack the most, and he keeps talking through the paragraph. So I saw this as like the camera slowly pulling focus on Boris as Jack sits there awkwardly waiting for a response, as the camera focuses on Boris's internal monologue while he's rudely not answering Jack. He just kind of left him hanging there.
Yeah, just like Jack's like, Boris? Hello? Boris?
It was obvious which of the Cold Relics. Yeah.
Or like them both of them in the shot, and then like it cuts it like as soon as like Jack is done like explaining what he wants, like what he thinks about the laser thing, it starts zooming to Boris, and like Jack looks over to the camera, it's like wait, why is it zooming in? Wait,
I'm still talking. Like, what's going on?
Like, yeah, it is. It was obvious what story he was interested in, and like as the camera's like panning out, Jack is like slowly being like pulled off like camera basically. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, pretty much. Big Hook comes in and pulls him off screen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll move on. Our guide and driver was waiting for us with his ride, a pale yellow Volkswagen Golf from around 1992. Woo! Bonus points for yellow and a Golf. I loved the 2000s Golf that we had. It was a great little car. So that's close to it. It's also yellow, which is even better.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then he goes on to describe Laszlo, saying, not Laszlo, though, risk-taker that he was. He had been in there several times and put it out there shamelessly that he had taken scrap and old tech from the place for a small profit. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, I can't wait for him to refuse to go in with them because he has a bummed ankle or something like that. Like, basically that he was a poser. However, not at all.
And he's surprised. This story does kind of like pull away from expectations a little bit in throughout the story. Actually, just as a quick aside, like one of the examples I had of that, I actually held my breath while reading the part where like they have to go across that road, like through that light, like through that sphere of light, and like we had Jack go through, then Boris went through, and then when Laszlo went through, I like held my breath, like, and I had that moment where like a shot, bang, a glance. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Like I had that moment where, cause I read the first, like that line, like holding my breath, like, Laszlo made it passed through. It was like, and I thought that signified that he made it. And then like the next line dropped. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I kind of have the same thing. Yeah.
Cause I thought for sure one of them was going to get killed. Like I knew it wasn't going to be Boris because he's writing the story down. like 2 years later. But
It could be Jack, the
I
new
was
guy that
concerned
isn't from a
for
previous story. When he was first introduced and I
Yeah.
didn't realize he was the previous Jack, I was like, okay, well, this new random Jack guy is clearly here to die. But no.
Yeah. Turns out though that was the Germans that that were
Yes.
that showed up.
I'll
Yeah.
continue.
Sorry.
My next one is just kind of a blanket statement to I really like the length that they go, they being the writer, to build up the fear of something as
Mhm.
simple as turning a light on. Like for
Yeah.
the longest time, I'm like, what the fuck's gonna happen when they turn the light on? And then they do turn on, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, no, that's something I think I brought up earlier is like I like the escalation, the anticipation, like even with the lab coat, like the claw marks in the ground, like when they look at the like through the light and see like the claw marks in the cement, and then they see like the claw, Boris sees the clawed like lab coat. It's like, what the fuck is in here with them? But
Pretty
yeah,
much. And the next one, we waited until we saw two guys come in, not much older than me and Jack, but I knew that they were here to show the danger of the lights without sacrificing any of the main characters. Sorry, that second part was me.
Yeah,
That wasn't Boris.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
No, yeah,
Was
100%.
right from the get-go.
Like, mhm. But I didn't hate.
No.
Did you hate that or like? Because I didn't.
No,
I
it
didn't
was
hate
fine.
that at all.
However, that being said,
Uh-oh.
I find it kind of dumb / funny that every time that Laszlo tells them to be quiet, they just don't. They just start screaming. Like he knows something, and
Yeah.
they know he knows something, so they're not even A, they're not listening to him at all, and B, Laszlo isn't attempting to make his point known.
Yeah. Well, okay, well, it does make sense, like when you read like through the story, because like, for their on their end, there's a little bit of mistrust between them and Laszlo, and also, like they are good people. They're trying to warn these guys, so like that's why they're being loud and stuff like that. And Laszlo's like again trepidations of like wanting to like say anything or like is because he's suffering from some kind of from post traumatic stress syndrome or some kind of trauma as a result of losing his dad there, and then literally seeing his brother get taken away by this creature.
Yeah, but something as simple as
So, like,
like
it's
when
sort of
he
like
says like to be quiet. Even if they just ask like, why do we need to be quiet? And he just says like, it can hear us. Like even if he says something as simple as that,
that would have been really
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
because even after falling to the ground
Hey, 'cause
floor
the-
and them hiding in the
Yeah.
corner, and again warning him not to make noise because they're bashing into the wall, like they don't listen.
yeah,
And even after all that, all three of them sit down having a heartfelt moment talking about their backstories, making noise. Because like it's said that
Yeah,
in the
it was-
street, the place is dead quiet, so this thing knows where they are.
yeah. But it
Yeah.
can't get to them because they're trapped in there right now. Honestly, like as soon as they got like they were trapped in that building, it's like, and here's the part in the movie where the characters are all stuck in a spot for a little bit. So let's get some backstory to kind of get us to know the characters a little bit
That's
more.
exactly right.
And again, like I didn't hate it, but it was like I acknowledge
Yes.
that trope is there.
So this next part, Jack says, Boris, I have a bit of medical training. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's confusing. Regardless, Boris, I have a bit of medical training, Jack told me. Let me help him. There's no point in both of us trying to reach the control room. So this is after they run across and he gets his arm bit off, obviously. So
Yeah.
I thought up until that point, the plan was just to get across, use the fire escape to get to the roof, and then leave. So then
Yep.
he just says, like immediately after the bite, he says, Boris, I have some medical training. Let me help him. There's no point both of us trying to reach the control room. Meanwhile, there was no plan to go to the control room
Yeah.
at all.
It is weird because like a little bit like shortly after that, Boris comes up with the plan to go to like they're not gonna like they realize like Laszlo's seriously injured and they don't want this creature getting out. So I think what Boris realized or what Boris and Jack realized was that they wouldn't be able to simply just escape this place and go. They need to shut down the power of
Yeah,
this
but
place.
without saying that,
So and
it was just so confusing.
oh no, yes, you're absolutely right because like, sorry, I also realized like the fact that like the way Laszlo is injured, he's not going to be able to do the thing that they were planning on doing and like hopping through the darkness on the rooftops. Like in order for Laszlo to survive this, to escape this, they need to turn the lights off. So suddenly the plan has changed to doing that. And like I get that, but yes, you're absolutely right. This comes out of left field because there's no explanation for it. Like it's just sort of like it's almost like they're on TACnet or they're like psychically like linked. It's like they know exactly what they have to do
weird.
now.
And like at that point, he's even if okay, the plan was to escape via the roof and all that, but at this point he's asking him for as far as they know. Jack is asking Boris to run all the way back to the town hall to try to get in to where the control room is, because up until that point, that is all they know. Laszlo said that the control room is up there behind that window. So, realistically, if he was going to follow that line of thought, he would be turning around and going back where they came, right at the very start.
There clearly need to be... Yes, but that isn't the case because like the actual entrance to that control room is not in the town; it's on the outside of the town.
Know that.
I know. There needs to be. I'm with you, gamer. There needs to be something here, like brought up, like even like the plan has changed. Like have like Laszlo say like the Germans probably went around the back or something like that. You need to go there.
Yeah, all we got
in order to turn the lights off.
All we got is Laszlo saying control room, not real, and then he passed out. But what the hell does that mean? The most that would mean is him admitting that he lied about the location of the control room. Great. But how the fuck would he find it? Like, I get it that he didn't want to tell them about the hunter and all that, but why the wrong location of the control room? The best thought I had coming up with that answer is, I suppose so. Even if they wanted to turn on the lights, they'd go to the wrong place. Like, that's fine. Okay, that's fine that he lied about the way to get to the control room. However, like after leaving the street and everything, I'm assuming this is how it actually went. Like the bite happens and then all that shit happens. Okay, and then he says, Boris, and I'm assuming, sorry, Jack says this to Boris. Boris, go to the control room. We won't get him up. We won't get him out of here with the lights on. I'll tend to Laszlo. Then Laszlo chimes in saying, outside the street. Then it sounds like, okay. Yeah, and then at that point, Boris is like, okay. So he's saying, it's not in here. It's outside of the street. So I leave where I came in. Okay, then at that point, Boris knows to leave. Otherwise, he wouldn't have any idea of where to check. Because the last he heard, Laszlo told him it's in the city hall. And technically it is, but that's not how you would get to it.
But the city hall is a fake, like, front. So, and again, like, there definitely need to be like a spot here where this has to be clarified, like this mission, like the sudden change in the mission. Because it was very like they stumbled, like they flipped down a set of stairs while trying to explain
Pretty
this
much,
part.
Because the last they heard, it's in the city hall. So even if it's not there, the first thing you would assume is like, okay, I guess it's in one of the other buildings on this street. Let me examine every building.
Or first thing you'd say when he's like, we have to get to the control room. He was like, Boris would be like, fuck, because he has to go back the way they came. I had the exact same confusion and issue, and then like I just pushed through it, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. But that would have been nice if it had been explained more clearly.
Pretty much, yeah.
And in a much more straightforward way, and not just like, Boris, do the thing. Jack and Boris is just like, gotcha, bro. And then he just went and did the thing without explaining it to the rest of us.
Pretty much. But I'll continue from that.
Okay.
He was just standing there in the middle of the glowing sphere, watching me as I briefly flew through the air, its eyes and head tracking my movement. So I didn't fully clue in until now. This is when Boris was on his own, jumping from rooftop to rooftop, Assassin's Creeding around. I didn't fully clue in until just now that the hunter can always see them, regardless of the light or sound. Because if he's up there jumping, there's no light. But his head's still tracking him.
Yeah, no, it's the creature exists in our reality while it's in the light. And then it goes to its other reality when it's not in these light bubbles. So it can see outside of the light.
My point is, it's seeing him in complete darkness.
Yeah, it's probably got some kind of like creepy infrared. This probably is shows like, oh shit, this thing has more sensors inside of it.
Yeah, or if it can't see them, it just has really good hearing. Hence why Laszlo was telling them to shut the fuck up before. So it's hearing his footsteps and jumping. That's why it's tracking him so well.
Yeah.
And then, but he gets out, and then he looks back at him, and he says, "I worked up the confidence to flick it off before heading towards the exit. It didn't react to that either." First off, wouldn't that be flipping it off?
Yeah, and flicking the bird, I think, is also a saying. I maybe it might be a regional thing because I think I've heard flicking before,
might be like the under the chin thing.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But either way, it would have been adorable if it turned its head a little bit after he did that, like the creature.
Adorable and terrible and terrifying. I think it might have like I'd appreciate that, but it would also like that would kind of ruin the seriousness of it.
It would for sure. Like I'm glad it didn't.
Yeah. Like I kind of was like, it's like he flips in the bird. Oh no, you didn't! And he starts coming at him like through the light. It's like, oh shit!
Like, oh really? Oh.
And that's what we found out. It had been toying us the whole time. It came out of the dark. It came out into the darkness.
Machine guns deployed from its shoulders. Oh shit!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, technically, it did like kind of do that scene. It just a few moments later, like when he's like walking down that hall that's completely lit with the special light, and then it just phases through the walls, like, oh hi.
Speaking of that scene, not that I can explain why, but the shelf really did stop it in its tracks. It couldn't squeeze through below or above it, so it began to slice into it instead. So, first off, that's dumb. Sorry to say. There's no way that this shelf would have stopped it. If it was able to jump 3 stories tall to try to bite them while it's jumping, like bite them while jumping, like, and it's strong and heavy enough to knock over a 30-foot tall light standard that's made of metal in 2 bashes.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that the weight of a shelf that an injured human could manage to pull over would be heavy enough that it couldn't just run straight through it? And even so, I'm not done yet. Even so, think about it.
Okay.
If it's sitting at an angle to the ground, it hit the opposite wall to keep it from falling flat. That's what it said. So if it's low enough angle that it couldn't squeeze under, that would mean it would be able to jump over it. And if it was high enough that it could squeeze under, it would just go under it. So regardless, it would get past it. It was said before that this thing is smart enough to think about knocking down a light to move the light onto its prey. But now it's dumb enough that it can't figure out how to jump over an obstacle? Boston Dynamics robots can do that right now with human tech.
With modern human, current human
and
tech.
I get it that this was done because it's cinematic or whatever, and because Boris needed a chance to survive. But its biting and slashing power was already established, and this basically just treads over the same ground instead of doing something new and different with it.
Yeah, I think what would have been better, and maybe do you have anything like a way to fix it, or like to kind of like make this more logistical?
Yeah, like he pulls the thing over and it just jumps over it.
No, okay, no. I was thinking like in order to slow it down, like to have that effect of it slowing down, like to give him some time to like not get killed, like slaughtered. Was like because it says like the hallway is rowed with these shelves. So he drops the first one down in a futile attempt to try and stop it. The creature keeps going, smashing into that shelf, which then starts and because he just keeps smashing through it, he starts clogging up the hallway as like the other ones start getting caught by the slightly misaligned like shelving units like across the hall. So like it would slow it down a little bit, but it would also kind of give it a reason of like it's basically it smashes through this thing it's no big deal, but then it smashing it also causes a bunch of the other heavy metal shelving units to fall down or topple and get kind of clog up the hallway, so like stopping it from getting through, and then it has to like kind of actually like stop and cut through it. That might be a better play.
Maybe.
For it. Well,
anything's better than what it is, because basically what's there is very like Hollywood and standard. It doesn't really do anything cool.
Yeah.
Because like I said, his strength and power was already established by knocking down the light and shredding stuff with its claws, and its smartness was already talked about already. But its intelligence would be enhanced here by being able to see, okay, even though it had a clear line and a path of what to do, even if an obstacle gets in the way, it can compute to get over that instead of just stopping in front of it like a Roomba and having to think about what to do. Okay, initiate slashes. Okay, go. It kind of made it dumber in my eyes.
Fair.
And then we get to the fuse box. He says it was the fuse box that I would be running by. It gave me a chance. My goal was obvious. Risk electrocution by planting the axe blade firmly into it, hopefully shutting off the lights. I don't think he would have a problem with that if it's a wooden handled axe, because the electricity wouldn't go through the axe handle, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I sort of like, sure. Let's go with that. Let's go with that uncertainty. Like, I'm not I off the top of my head when I was reading the story, I wasn't sure if that was the case or not. So I just kind of let that in the air.
That wood doesn't conduct electricity, so he would be quote unquote fine. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to grab an axe and try it myself because it's still sketch, but yeah. And then after like taking out the fuse box, he says I steadied myself, getting my breathing under control. Listened to the silence of the long hallway. My dosimeter wasn't complaining anymore either. I kind of wish he was said that at least once during the chase that the dosimeter has been beeping, like was beeping constantly, or maybe even getting louder and louder the closer the hunter got to him. Because honestly, I forgot that it was beeping until he said that it stopped.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate because that would have added to the scene a lot. Mm-hmm. Then he gets to his destination. The door had been broken into. A lock rested on the ground, looking like it had been pried off by the Germans. I assumed that Laszlo had put it there in an attempt to keep them away, keep anyone from turning the lights on again. Just our luck, a pair of determined urban explorers decided to intrude on our tour that night. So they managed to rip open a lock, and yet they didn't have a crowbar or bolt cutters or anything with them. Only snacks and water. Did they do with their bare fucking hands?
Or the axe, that like the axe was still in its like glass containment, like not like the glass hadn't been broken or anything like that, so they didn't use the axe. Yeah, so it was. Yeah, it's. There should have been. I think there maybe should have been like a crowbar at the like. It should have had a note that there was a crowbar at the foot of the door or something. They just like burst that open and then just like left it in either inside the control room or just outside.
Maybe lockpicks were in the backpack. That would work too.
Maybe
just something, because at this point they wrecked it somehow for reasons.
Yep.
Well, it does actually. No, it says the lock rested on the ground, looking like it had been pried off. It wasn't picked; it was pried off. So yeah. So I'll just read the quote. Laszlo's last words to me were accurate. This could barely qualify as a control room. And then, like 2 paragraphs later, it says, Laszlo called the room fake, and I could see why. All it had was a giant lever with one function. And to me, I'm like, yeah, one function, to control. And it's in a room, which makes it seem like it's a control room. It's kind of a real, not fake control room at all, because it controls things in a room.
I mean, you're right. I think what he meant. I think what it meant was. I think what Laszlo was trying to say there was that like the room that he's going to like turn off the button, like it's not the actual. It is a front for the actual control room, which is really just that monitoring station in that other compartment. Like it's a facade on a facade.
Yeah, but the control room is in the exact place he said, and it does the exact function he said. It controls it. So where is the fakeness?
Well, he's gurgling, like almost like dying, like kind of bleeding out. So he just choked out like the control room's fake. It's like that could mean anything, or that could mean a couple of things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that like. Although when you first hear it, it does sound like he's saying like that control room is not real, or it's like it's fake. But it's like it could mean like, because again, English isn't his primary language. It could just be that he's like, it was like broken English in his like dying or his half dying state, and he was just trying to say it's like it's a front, like the control room's a front. So
it's not.
It is though.
Well, you also have to question whether or not Laszlo was just trying to prevent him from going to the control room because it wouldn't necessarily turn off the lights. Because the lights in the warehouse section would still be on potentially.
Oh, okay. So, like, I mean, it does turn off light, but I see what you mean. Like, he's basically just telling him, like, maybe trying to dissuade him from just going and just escape, just leave them to their fate, sort of thing.
Well, or
Maybe.
to find another source of electricity, which he does with a different fuse panel.
Yeah.
And then that disables the lights in the warehouse, which gives them an escape route.
Yeah, but the guys inside the warehouse, like inside the interior warehouse, like where all the fake downtown is, they're still not safe because the lights in there are fine.
Yeah. So, well, the way you could see it is that Laszlo is warning him not to do the control room first, because if he went to the control room first and turned it off, then he would be blocked from getting to that fuse box.
Yeah.
Because the creature would be there.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So.
Why would he be there? I don't understand.
Well, because he'd do exactly what he did in the story, which is pass through the walls because those lights are on, so he's able to affect that part of the reality and cross into the outer warehouse. So
I don't know. I just found this whole thing weird.
Okay, fair enough.
The whole fake thing, like I remember writing down somewhere specifically like what he would have said in that situation realistically. I can't seem to find it because I have a million notes. It goes under grammar somewhere. Well, regardless, I feel like he'd be saying something like in his dying words, like he needs to say something that's actually useful, because at this point, as far as my brain can understand it, which is very little apparently, him saying the room fake or whatever the hell it was completely useless, and it didn't say anything, didn't give him any information. And
I will give you that, because it wasn't until just while we're having this conversation that I kind of formulated that a rationale basically to counter you, because that's how my brain fucking works, is I have to be contrary,
of course.
But yeah, what I did think it was odd, he said the control room is fake. It's so this is a fucking fool's errand. When I was reading the story, that's what I was so this is going to end badly for everyone.
Yeah,
but
even
then,
if he goes to the control room, it doesn't do anything, except it exactly does do things, so it's not fake.
Well,
what he should have said,
yes,
he should have said when he was dying, isn't control room fake. He should have said something like, control room at the cinema. Because at that point, he had no idea where the hell he was going.
Well, the control room's not at the cinema, though.
Wasn't it? I thought it was
the
side door at the cinema.
No, he had to get out.
To it.
That's how he got out. But then he had to run around the entire inner. He had to run so he had to run through the corridors of the exterior warehouse along the interior one to get to the city hall where the control room was on the other end. Basically the entrance to the control room that is on that second floor of that city hall, which is the opposite side of where the cinema is.
Yeah.
He had to run around the enclosure basically to get to there.
I remember what there it is. He should have said actually no, I lost it again. Fuck. Oh, there it is. I said this in a previous note. But he should have said something like outside the street, in regards to telling him where to go to get to it, because up to that point, if Boris was okay, I have to get to the control room, he said that the control room is at City Hall, so I'll run back to City Hall down the street, and then he would get there and be like, I can't get in. Okay, I guess it's in a different room.
I guess I'm dead.
Every building along the way and die.
Yeah.
But he just magically knew I have to get outside because the control room is outside. I can only access it from outside, even though I was told otherwise. That's my whole gripe with this problem, with this section here.
Yeah. I think it's also like it adds to our whole idea of like they just know exactly where to go, like, and they don't tell the reader.
Yeah, just for reasons.
But I still think now that like I'm thinking of it, that the like when he said like control room fake, it wasn't that like the control room isn't where you need to go. I think it was like the control room that is behind the facade of the city hall is also a facade for the actual control room or the monitoring room. I think that's what he was saying, but like
But they
I
didn't
like
even
again
see
like
that control room. He just pointed at it. It's like it's in there somewhere.
yeah, again like
And when he
we're
got
also
there,
like
when he got there, he was actually looking out that window down the street. So
no, I get that. Like I mean like it's behind like it's like what also we're thinking about this as if like Laszlo is speaking coherent like should be speaking coherently. I'm sorry, if your hand has been ripped off of your body and you're losing a lot of blood, you're in shock. You're not going to be thinking straight. You're not going to be saying things like coherently. So it's amazing that he said anything at all instead of just like a blood curdle.
This is a story about a giant robot that can interact between two different dimensions.
Yeah, okay. The story is still grounded in reality, our reality, aside from like the one sci-fi element that's in it.
Okay, and
So,
in
like-
that reality, if Laszlo was speaking incoherently and saying random shit that didn't make sense, he wouldn't be saying twice in a row, like I just said, that his last words were accurate. This could barely qualify as a control room. It is a control room. His last words were inaccurate. It's not fake. It's real. It works. It doesn't matter if it's just one lever. It controls.
All right. I will concede.
Okay. Let's just agree to disagree on this because we'll be here forever.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. This is my thing. I agree with you. Like, it's just at the same time, I'm playing devil's advocate that like what he said isn't what we thought it meant.
Fair.
Because words can mean things differently.
I understand that. Moving on.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I searched the room's walls. Oh, this is in regards to like the secret room out back, I guess. I searched the room's walls, looked under its ugly yellow rug. Excuse me, that rug is yellow, which by default is not ugly. So screw you.
Gamer immediately hates this story.
No, I hate Boris. He has very terrible taste.
Oh, how dare you!
He shat on the pale yellow Golf that Laszlo was driving. Now he's shitting on this yellow rug. He's just anti-yellow.
Man, we can't all like yellow.
Why not?
Because.
So then they get Laszlo out and all that. When Laszlo was discharged and we brought him back home, he seemed to be in high spirits, considering missing a hand and half an arm had barely phased the guy. He was gonna use some of the cash he got from raiding the warehouse to buy a quote-unquote badass prosthetic. And to me, I'm like, hell yeah, okay. He sounds like a Shadowrunner to me now.
Yeah, legit.
Sorry, Mikey.
Yeah, sorry, Mikey.
He's like, I lost an arm, whatever. I'll just buy a cybernetic.
Yep.
Next one. But we understood his own need for secrecy. He knew he either needed to keep his findings to himself for all time or pass them on to someone he could fully trust. He didn't want his discoveries to be tracked back to him and get himself tracked down. That's a problem now, because in a town of 400 people, it could be very easy to find a cocky, badass, prosthetic lower arm guy who drives a yellow Golf with stickers all over the back. Probably should have redacted a lot of that information.
Who frequents the only bakery in town.
Yeah, if someone reads the story and just finds that town. I don't think they name drop the town, but
okay, they don't name drop the town. But if the Shadow Organization like knows about like all this shit, like all these like artifacts and places and sites and stuff like that, they're gonna know the one fucking small town next to the Liminal warehouse in the middle of the Ukrainian woods.
Yeah. So Laszlo's dead.
Yeah, so Laszlo needs to go on the lam. Like, so that's where he drove off. It's like, well, it's like he wasn't driving back home. He was just driving because now he's on the lam.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Then, in a follow-up email to the attachment from Tyler to Boris, he says, "Freaking hell, Boris! I had no idea it went down like that. I got more questions, but I'll keep them just between us and not post them on the website. I'm still trying to make sense of your experience, but I think I have a good title for the story that doesn't really give away the surprise of its main quote-unquote villain." It kind of seems like at this point, Tyler's more interested in storytelling than the survival or helping people at this point.
Yeah, you know what this feels like? It feels like a Call of Cthulhu game where you're all playing. The players are all playing journalists, and your fixer. Sorry, Mikey. Or like your contact or the person that sends you off to go like check out these like weird places and deal with these weird monsters and stuff like that. For the story is your editor at the editorial that you work for.
Yeah.
Like this feels very much like a pulpy like Tyler is like the editor and publisher of the articles that his journalists and photographers out in the field are like risking their lives to get.
Pretty much, yeah. 100% what it is. I mean, granted,
Yeah, that's what.
Granted, he's a quote unquote kid, so he can't do much else
like
aside from that. But
yeah,
still.
Young adult at best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it says, "I'll read the story a few more times, whip up some of my crappy art, and get it on the site by the end of the month." And that I'm like, oh, damn it! And here I was about to criticize the art that was on creepypasta.fandom, but I suppose it's fine now because Tyler did it. It's not meant to be realistic. However, in hindsight, that isn't even the right art. Tyler did not do that art. Someone else did that art.
Unless he did it later, or like he had somebody else commission it. Again, we don't know if the I think it's Digigekko on creepypasta.wiki. Yeah, we don't know if Digigekko on creepypasta.wiki is the same person that runs the Cold Relic site. They might just be posting them on creepypasta.wiki, which, given that we had it, that there was a recent like purge of like content on the wiki page that wasn't by original posters, it's relatively safe to assume, not a guarantee, that Digigekko is the same person that runs the Cold Relic stuff. And if there is any kind of like, if we're wrong on that, or if there's like, if somebody would like to correct us in any way of that, they can contact us on our web via our email, which I will drop at the end of the episode.
Indeed. And in regards to the art, I kind of wish that the creature wasn't drawn at all. Especially considering he just said he was concerned what to call the story without spoiling what the villain was. And then he goes ahead and draws the damn thing and puts it up at the start of the story.
Yeah, that's the only thing I want to double check. Is the does the Cold Relic story like version have the image at the very beginning?
I don't know, I didn't read that one.
I'm double checking right now. Actually, I've pulled up Cold Relics. Yeah, no, it's right there at the very top of the page. Like Yeah, okay, yeah. Maybe if that had gone at the very bottom, like as like, because like he's done that before. He has an image at the bottom of the page that just but it shows the it shows like a crappy, like Tyler's words, a crappy sketch of the enclosure of the move the downtown area, but with like kind of a bubble that to signify that it's like enclosed. Like that should have been at the top, and the monster should have been at the bottom.
100%, yeah. Yeah, that should be switched.
Yeah,
and then the other one on creepypasta has a quote unquote realistic-y sort of silhouette with giant cartoony red glowy eyes. Long story short, I wish he wasn't there. Unfortunately, like I like the look of the street and seeing the bubbles and everything. That's good, but seeing it spoils it.
Yeah, honestly, like I feel like the creature should not be in any of these images.
No. I mean, I'm fine with the crappy sketch at the end, but it has to be at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you go in knowing what it is, then the reader isn't surprised at the same time that the characters are, because they know what it is going in.
Yeah, like the imagery of the location itself is fine because it helps it's sort of like a support image.
Yeah. And then my last notes, when I read this line, this is just what I thought, but the line is, the dust in the warehouse contained an abundance of elements that bombs? What? That should be changed a bit. Like grammar-wise. The dust in the warehouse contained an abundance of elements... Oh, no, okay. That bombs of both countries would have left behind. Both of them. So, it kind of... When I read that, it made me think that like the U.S. and Russia were making nuclear-powered robots to fight to the death in this arena, and the hunter like won and killed everyone.
That could be an interesting like play. Like it wasn't like because my go-to was that it's this thing comes from a reality where it's just a global wasteland
Yes.
of like nuclear fallout and stuff,
which is awesome.
like with like the Terminator Dark Future. But yours is a lot more like downscaled, but like still kind of horrific and terrifying because like they have these like phasing like out of phase reality robot like nuclear robots. Like oh my god. Like this is why Russia and America didn't go to war in the Cold War. They set up the most extreme fucking robot wars.
Yes.
Like Robot Wars isn't like that TV show or that those tournaments that people have where like they create like death robots
Like
to fight each other. Like they're like
that. Yeah.
they're like little like death Roombas.
Yes.
That like they can remote control.
I was literally watching some of those like 2 or 3 days ago. This morning
nice.
as well, honestly.
Very nice. But yeah, I like that idea. Just like just they created this arena to like fight like to see which country's robot was better, and then they got one of them like took out the other ones, and then took out all the people that were spectating and stuff. But because they have this like maybe the phasing thing is like actually like a precautionary like it's like a backup thing that they developed after they realized that they could develop this kind of weird lighting, this like weird phase light.
Maybe. Or the hunter is the Ukrainian robot, so like the American robot came over to battle it, and this is his home turf with his weird supernatural phasing power hooked up through the lights and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way,
it's just G Gundam.
A little bit.
You know what G Gundam is, right?
I know what Gundam is.
G Gundam is the Gundam anime series where like it's basically a tournament series where every country has a Gundam and they're very stereotypically that country. Like Gundam.
So it's
like
Street Fighter
it's
Gundam.
Kind of, yeah. Like there's like in G Gundam there's literally a Gundam from Mexico that has a sombrero, a poncho, and then there's like and then there's like one from like Holland or from like the Netherlands that like is basically just a windmill Gundam.
Of course.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's like some of them are like it's kind of like
super racist, basically.
Yeah, no, it's like it is racist. Yeah. Like it's racial stereotype the Gundams.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I can't have that out of my head now too. Damn it. It's like, well, but like what I was going at was like each one, like each mech from like or each robot from their countries, like they're all nuclear powered because that was the best power source at the time.
Yeah.
But they all have like a different like gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Ukrainian or the Russian one or the Soviet one has like phasing tech when these light bubbles are introduced.
Nope. Seems legit. And that's the end of my notes.
Okay. Then I suppose we'll move on to final thoughts. I really enjoyed this entry. No surprise. I've liked a lot of the Cold Relic stories because I like the stories, like how the stories tackle these like antiquated or anachronistic pieces of technology that have like fringe science to them or even like super preternatural powers to them.
Yeah, old technology like killer robots.
Yeah, well, no, I meant like anachronistic, like because like again, like it's Cold War era, like advanced cybernetics and robots, with, like phasing tech and shit. I know. Denied. But anyway, yeah, it had a bit of a cinematic narrative flair to it, like in parts, but and by that I mean like there were some survival horror movie beats that throughout it that I caught, like when they were trapped inside the bookstore and some of that, and they were like, all right, let's share our like the reasons for why we're here and some of that. That's straight out of like a horror. Like the crew is like stuck for a beat in the movie.
Yep. Because
like the monster's like stalking them or like they're trapped in like a room or in like some kind of cave or something like that, and so they decide to start sharing each other's like their hopes and dreams because the filmmakers want the audience to care about these characters right before they get like mauled or killed.
Yes.
Those kind of like cinematic beats to it, and even like when the Germans show up and get killed off, like they were clearly here to showcase the monster's intro.
Yes. They're
like
the
that kind
intro
of
kill
stuff.
before the credits.
Exactly. Like they're even like they're drunk characters. They're like goofing off their asshole-y kind of like because they're just like a bunch of like punk tourists with GoPros.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're that guy who gets killed in the movie. And yeah, like the whole idea of this mechanical creature and perhaps what we've kind of built up in our heads based on like what has been presented, this like from it's from possibly from some alternate history that's bleeding into this warehouse because of this weird like light phasing tech that they have. It got me really excited as I was reading. Like I don't think there was a point in this story where I didn't want to keep reading. Like I just kept wanting to read more to find out what was going on and how things were going to play out, because I knew that Boris wasn't going to die, but I was kind of concerned for Laszlo and Jack to a degree.
Well, I knew Jack wasn't going to die because it said early on that Jack doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. Like in the signal interrupt or whatever.
Oh, see, I thought. Okay, you're right. I must have skipped that because I thought that was.
You also said
I thought that was something from before.
You also said earlier that you thought Jack was an entirely new character here to be killed.
Yeah, because that is something against it. Is like I complete like they didn't even like try to like explain where Jack came from. They just sort of not until like halfway through the story. It's like when they're talking about like what they're doing. It's like Jack's from the Florida from Florida, i.e., he's from the Kittyland story, right?
Yeah.
I thought you were a completely different. I had like so many notes I had to remove about Jack because like I had a bunch of like theories I was speculating, and then I was like, oh, I can just remove all these.
Yeah.
So like I guess that might be points against it, but ultimately this story for me was really fun and I enjoyed it. Yes, it's got some problems that could be easily like worked out and fixed, but I'm going to recommend it because I really enjoyed it, and I'm interested to see now that we know that like our hero woke up 2 years ago.
Yeah.
From the story being posted, that like I'm curious to see what happens next.
You figure they would jump on that.
Yeah.
Like the characters themselves be like, oh fuck, he's up. We need to go talk to Redacted and see what's going on.
It makes me wonder because like they seem to like have like like that incident like they're almost like treating it like some kind of incident happened when he woke up. So maybe our hero's still not around, or maybe he's like maybe something bad happened when he woke up, which obviously it did because otherwise it wouldn't be a whole story that's coming up. But anyway, yeah, for this story, Liminal Warehouse, I Review Cultist will recommend it. So, Mikey, the stands for evil.
Okay, well, look at my notes here. So this is a good action pasta.
Yeah.
I personally didn't really get really creeped out by it, probably because over analyzing a really long story. But the creature is neat, and it's interesting that there's something stopping it from getting into our world, yet it can take things into its world.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is... Well, it's again, like, that light is some weird anomaly.
Yeah, like, if someone goes in that light, you're in its dimension, so it can grab you and keep you there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. That's a good point.
Well, and here's another interesting thing about that. It's never described that the warehouse on the outside has windows. So, like, maybe it is like sort of a situation of like sunlight is actually like sunlight is maybe even powerful enough for this thing to interact with our world. So like, that would be like during the day. Like if this thing ever broke out, like it would be a menace during the day, but like at night you're safe because there's no like the light. It's out of phase basically.
If it's up for that sort of light, which I don't think it is, because it only attacked Boris in that second area outside the dome because those fluorescent lights also had the weird bulbs in them too.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was also saying. Like, yeah, it might just be that it needs those special lights. In which case, like, it is good that this story kind of creates this contained problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it is? Yeah.
It's so overall, I'm gonna give this a recommendation. just because it is an entertaining read, even though it is a long read.
Yeah.
It
I love how we criticize stories for being too short. We criticize stories for being too long.
There was a happy medium, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a recommendation for me.
Okay. And Gamer.
In regards to the length of the stories, by the way,
Mhm.
I can only speak for myself, but I prefer reading an extremely long story compared to short ones. Because generally speaking, if there's that much effort put into the story, there's a damn good reason.
That's fair. I
All
mean,
the really long ones,
yeah,
we've enjoyed to a degree, like Baraska and A Dare My Best Friend Have Ruined My Life and all that. Those are all long stories,
Yeah.
multi-parters, but they were good because of it.
Yeah. I feel like we should also point out, like, when we bitch about long stories, it's more on us because we have to read it within a weekly time frame for a show, and like we all have lives outside of this podcast, so yeah, like that's more like the criticism of length of stories. Like when it gets like when the stories are really long, and if it sounds like we're complaining that these stories are really long, it's more or less like it's not really a complaint of the story. It's just like our allotted time out of podcast or off show, off recording, where we have to actually read the story and research it and stuff like that, or like take our notes and such. So
yeah, like you have cultist things to do, I have ninja things to do. Mikey has other things to do.
Yep. So I feel like we should put that into context, like why we bitch about lengths of stories sometimes, because I feel like we do I feel like every long story that we come across, like we may not say directly, but we maybe sometimes insinuate it in our discussions.
Like it's a bad thing,
yeah, and it really isn't a bad thing in terms of the story itself. It's just kind of our own, like, that's where our head is at because of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
yeah.
Either way, I'll move on to my recommendation now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a long one, but I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I'm agreeing with you guys with that. It wasn't too slow of a start. I like the characters. I'm glad I was wrong, assuming that Laszlo would be a poser and be useless. Like, he was actually cool and useful. Interesting.
Yeah.
I liked the use of light being danger and the shadow being the safety part, which is cool. And
it's a nice change.
Mm-hmm. And it connected quite well, and it was fun. Especially since, like, I'm a lover of stealth games in general, and I've been recently playing like Origami 2, where you're an undead shadow ninja and such, like hiding in the shadows, and the light is the dangerous area, so it kind of hit home a little bit, even more so there.
Yeah, like it does. Like, if this was to be a video game, if somebody was to make this into an indie video game, it would 100% be like a parkourish stealth game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like Amnesia style, where like you don't fight them, you avoid them or die.
You avoid them, maybe have to solve a puzzle in order to get by them, or to like to stop them from progressing at you.
Yes,
but that's about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The monster was badass and well portrayed, like the way visually and all that, and all that. However, that brings me to the negatives here. So the hunter, was he a tiger? They referred to him as
the tiger. I refer. Yeah, it was just described as like being roughly shaped like a tiger in size wise too.
Yes, but they referred to him as a hunter, so that's what I was calling him. Regardless, he was perfectly described for me. Everything was great until he left the street, in my opinion, because that chase in the hallway, the shelf stopping it
was so ridiculous.
It seemed really dumb to me. And as I said before in my notes about all this, like, I've already said all that, so I don't need to tread over the same ground. But like, there was like huge confusion about the plan, about what they were doing. Like, he just magically knew exactly where to go to get to the quote unquote fake control room. I won't open that wound. It's fine. Yeah. And how he knew exactly where to look for it and all that. It was all poorly described and confusing. But other than that, though, it was a solid story, and I recommend it. Mm-hmm. It's just a shame that it was like so close to being a perfect story for me. Like, a couple little tweaks. Like, I say they're little tweaks. They are small tweaks, but they do a big impact because you literally just change slightly what Laszlo says as he's dying, or change the chase scene at the end so the robot doesn't seem as dumb. It would be, dare I say, better than Who Was Phone? If it was...
No.
It could be. It has the potential.
Yes, yeah.
Because I really liked it, because I know Mikey said that he wasn't really too scared about it. And I wasn't necessarily scared, I guess, per se, but it was tense the entire time.
You know what this is? Like, again, and I was thinking about bringing it up, but I decided not to, but fuck it, I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay.
This is a thriller. Like, this is what happens when horror and action come together.
Yes.
It's a thriller pasta, because, and it's similar to some of the action pastas. We've called them action pastas in the past, but I mean, they're also kind of technically thrillers because they have elements of horror, but like the action kind of dampens that, like the full fear effect that horror has, and turns it into a thriller because there's tense adrenaline like moments in it that are also like because again, you're worried. Like, I think that's the sense. Like, thrillers, like horror gives you a sense of fear, action gives you a sense of thrill, or a sense of excitement, and a thriller, which is something in between, gives you a sense of worry for what's about to happen. Like it tries to like thread that needle of like balance between the two genres.
Yeah, I think it does it quite well. It's just there was those couple of things that really hit me hard and pissed me off.
Really irked you.
Yeah.
Like, really grind your gears.
Yeah, it's an unintentional pun because it's a robot. But yes, aside from that, I'll recommend it.
Okay. And I suppose that'll be this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below, or this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. You can also send us emails at aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things on the internet. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. And you can also talk to us on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W because his name is very long.
I don't have a choice anymore.
No.
For the bit.
And I'm at Review Cultist. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tier with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you guys immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay, and we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you also, because without your listenership, it would be like screaming into the non-existent darkness, grasping for the light that makes us solid again. And if you weren't writing these stories and posting them on your own websites or sharing them on a creepypasta.wiki or Reddit No Sleep or what have you, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to fucking talk about. So thank you. Thank you. So fucking pumped. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well.